To start with a threat for more damaging storms, both tonight, tomorrow, and Friday. Wind, hail, and even tornadoes possible. This is some of the damage that we've seen already. Roofs ripped off of homes in Louisiana and trees, along with power lines, taken down. Tomorrow, another severe weather threat developing, and the risk for damaging tornadoes is much higher. In fact, some of these locations of most concern, that includes you in Memphis, where it is beautiful out there today. Get your errands done and hopefully do your travel plans before or after the storms come through, just not during. And we're going to time this out from Memphis down to Jackson, Mississippi, where, again, weather today, phenomenal. But we're especially worried about you for a destructive tornado threat. So let's go over to Storm Specialist Mark Elliott now, tracking it all and kind of bringing all the ingredients together.
Yeah, I mean, it is so quiet and so beautiful out ahead of this storm system for tomorrow that I do worry that people are going to be caught unaware. We don't want anyone to have the excuse that this came without warning, right? We're talking about it all day for you here on the Weather Channel, but we will rely on you to call your friends and your family in order to let them know that this severe weather setup is changing and changing dramatically by tomorrow. No more of the blue skies like we've been showing you. Dangerous, dangerous weather sets up tomorrow. Not only a possibility, but a likelihood, a very likely setup for severe weather across Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, where not only could we see gusty winds and hail, but also, unfortunately, it looks like tornadoes are more and more possible as well. There's several ingredients that we look at when trying to kind of break down how the tornado threat could or would unfold through any given day. And so let's go a little inside baseball. Let's show you what we're looking at here. This colored map shows you the amount of available energy for the storms. It's kind of a proxy for the strength of the updraft, the air that's moving up from the ground and up through the atmosphere. There will be more than enough of that lift, that rising air, anywhere that you see the yellow, and to be quite honest, extending that a little bit off towards the north and east, because this is just a snapshot, one moment for the day. The whole day that does grow and move north and east as our low pressure and front move northeast as well. We also look at where the fronts are, because this front to the north is going to be our northern cutoff. This warm front is going to be an extra zone of spin and enhancement to the tornado threat, which is why we have that extra kind of bubble of brighter colors right around that front. And then we look at the winds with height. The warm front moves north. It brings up that southerly wind at the surface. It brings the moisture in. Moisture, all other things equal, if you have higher moisture, you have an easier time lifting the air. And so that's an important component. At about a mile up, the winds are coming out of the southwest now instead of the south. And that switch, that turn, helps to get our storm spinning, and eventually that can be brought into the smaller scale tornado threat. It's why this map has the purple on it, right? That zone of 5 to 7 on the Torcon, a pronounced tornado threat for tomorrow, which could start early in the day along our warm front, repeat in many of the same areas in the mid-afternoon as our supercell threat kicks in, and repeat a third time as the cold front arrives from the west and we have embedded tornadoes along that line of storms. So gosh, when you have a day like that, it is increasingly difficult to get the word out, because it's not just one storm that blasts through and you're done. It's round after round after round of storms and multiple tornado threats along through the day, sometimes over the same counties multiple times. So if you see that red crawl on the bottom of your screen tomorrow, if you hear tornado sirens, if you happen to be outside, that's really what tornado sirens are for, to warn you if you're not in structures. If your phone starts going off, respect those warnings for tomorrow, because again, I think there will be tornadoes. This is what the model sees as where the risk will be for significant tornadoes through the day. And look at how this expands and grows. This is around lunchtime, all of Mississippi, all of Alabama at play. As we work our way through the mid to late afternoon, early evening, then north and central Georgia, much of Tennessee into Kentucky starts getting into the tornado threat for significant tornadoes possible. And this all shifts towards the east. You lose a little bit overnight, but it doesn't ever go to zero. There could still be significant tornadoes along our cold front into tomorrow. Again, the most prevalent ingredient is going to be that spin in the environment. Again, think 3D. Yes, where you're sitting in north central Mississippi, At the surface, south-southeast winds at 10, not too bad, except aloft, south-southwest winds closer to 65 and continuing to get even stronger aloft. That change with height organizes our storms, gives us a wind threat and a tornado threat. Gosh, Chris, all modes of severe weather are on the table for tomorrow.
And timing out tomorrow's severe threat is very important as people across the South prepare. That's why we're taking to places like Little Rock and Atlanta today, where it's cloudy in North Georgia. Sunny, though, from Little Rock to Memphis. We've been showing you Jackson, even Birmingham. Not too bad of an afternoon. So quiet afternoon to get some plans in place for tomorrow. Note this time tomorrow, boy, is it going to be very busy and times it may be overwhelming. There's so many warnings coming at you, numerous warnings, not to say that you could get under several tornado warnings throughout the day tomorrow in some of these locations. So northern Alabama, let's talk about you in southern Tennessee. Chattanooga, you are now included in that Torcon of a 7, okay? This is a big deal, and for us, at least in this part of the South, this is a higher risk than what we saw last week. So this will really be a test to your plans. Make sure you have a way to get those alerts. Some of these are going to continue after dinner time into the nighttime hours. I want to show you what happens here. Unlike what we see in Memphis and areas a little farther west, we're going to get a whole swath of rain to come through early in the morning, late tonight, early tomorrow morning. Here it's going to be more broken up. It won't be as widespread. We'll have some showers, heavier downpours through the first half of the day. After lunchtime, that's when things start to get a little feisty. You're going to notice these storms really starting to grow, mature, and they could certainly rotate and also spawn hail, damaging winds, and then those destructive tornadoes. Very concerning when the high resolution puts out these type of supercells that we see coming through the I-59 corridor. Some of these may clip us here around Chattanooga. So if you're out, camping, I know this is a popular spot for rock climbers. Tomorrow's not the day to go out and do that sort of thing, especially if you have no service to get those alerts. If you have no way to look at the radar to keep tabs what's going on, maybe you're in a canyon or something and you can't see the sky all too often. You want to make sure you don't put yourself in a situation that's going to make you more vulnerable to danger. By the time we get into midnight, then all of this finally pushing off towards the east. Let's take you to Arkansas. We haven't talked about Little Rock yet. Little Rock, our risk compared to last week actually lower. However, don't rule this out. 3s, and then once you head east of the city, you get into eastern Arkansas, you're looking at a Torcon of a 5. So it's not 0. But I think we're going to have a lot more cloud cover and showers earlier on with numerous rounds of heavier rains. These ones aren't going to be individual supercells, but they could pack a punch, especially on the leading edge with some very strong damaging winds. Some of those could rotate and form a few tornadoes. And again, we'll have numerous rounds of wet weather, stormy weather, pretty much, especially the first half of the day. By the time we get into the latter half of the afternoon, a lot of this starting to push off to the east. The front comes through, clears us out, and we really drop that threat of any severe weather after that. Now here for areas in Atlanta, again, like last week, we're kind of right on the edge. The northern half of the city, and certainly get up towards parts of, Cherokee and Cobb counties, as well as there in Bartow County, from Kennesaw up towards Cartersville. That's where your risk is 3s and 4s, even 5s on the Torcon. And we'll have to watch the northwest side of the city, especially working up towards Chattanooga. Mark, these could be especially gnarly, and we know how busy that I-75 corridor can be. Very hilly, very wooded, and likely not going to have any, visual of these storms.
Yeah, difficult storm tracking through the southeast because of those very issues. There's hills, there's trees, there's often a lot of traffic on those roads as well. And so it adds to the complexity for tomorrow's communication as well. This is going into an area that has seen storms already this week. We've seen heavy rain over the past day or so. This happens to be out in New Orleans, where it was pouring yesterday. At this time yesterday, we were under flash flood warnings in New Orleans and the surrounding region, and for good reason, too, because you could see just how heavy that rain was. Things are a little bit better now in the New Orleans area. Lots of people kind of out and about checking out the sights and scenes in the French Quarter. But you have to stay weather aware today into tomorrow here also, because here, too, there could be some more rain. And with the grounds as saturated as they are, you could still have more flash flooding. Flash flood watch in place not only today, but continuing through midnight Friday because of how soggy things are. There is 0 bandwidth in the soils left because of what happened yesterday. 5.5 1.54 inches of rain in New Orleans. Not only the second wettest March day on record, but a top 20 all-time wettest day, number 19 on the list, which is incredible considering the location near the Gulf and how many tropical systems have come through in history that, a random day got 5.5 inches and cracked the top 20. Lake Charles, second wettest March day, just shy of 5 inches of rain. And it really was a huge footprint of rain that occurred here across the South. Here's what's happening now. As forecast, the models are really increasing the coverage now, and we're seeing fairly rapid destabilization of the atmosphere, a little sea breeze front, a little stalled out boundary, scattered showers and storms returning. Sure, we could see an isolated severe thunderstorm here, but we also could see that potential for more flooding, and I think that is the take-home message here. Flood watches are up. And not only a possibility of severe flooding there, but also flooding coming out of Texas as our storm system that we're following for Thursday really gets organized, and that brings more rain into that same area. So, Chris, gosh, it is just day after day after day of severe weather, heavy rain, and a flood risk across the South.
And the severe storm threat doesn't wind down after sunset tonight. In fact, that's when it ramps up, and it will start here in Texas. Now, not as high as what we're going to see tomorrow, but we want to start with Dallas and Shreveport. Both of you expecting an overnight threat of strong and severe storms. Notice how high clouds are starting to stream into view over the Dallas tower cam. That's indicative of storms starting to flare up to your west. So we're going to monitor those because those are what's going to push in around dinner time and later on tonight. Multiple rounds, too. I want to start here in Louisiana. We've got a thunderstorm pushing through Baton Rouge right now, working up the Mississippi River, about to approach us there. And New Roads, Louisiana. Again, not severe. Thankfully, we're dry in New Orleans, but this is a very active spot. We'll have to watch these storms, especially for heavy rainfall. And as Mark mentioned, the risk for flash flooding. We'll step back and take a broader view. Few thunderstorms here in central Texas, north of San Angelo, but the bulk of the energy is still associated with all the snow that you see into New Mexico. This is ultimately going to spill into the southern plains, and this is what's going to carve its path across the mid-south as we go into your Thursday and as we end out the week. So overnight tonight, storms really start to get gnarly from central and northern Texas. This extends all the way back up through central Arkansas in the wee morning hours heading into your Thursday. So make sure before going to bed tonight, you have your sound on your phone setting on. So just so if things were to get a little, worse than you were anticipating, you at least have that knowledge and can be woken up and get to your safe spot. So there's how storms kind of fire up. At first, they'll be innocent thunderstorms. They'll really start to grow in size and mature as we go towards dinner time, just before sunset. That's when we expect them to push through here. Fort Worth, Dallas, down I-35, Waco. After dinner, we'll expect that line to work through, and then damaging winds as we go towards Texarkana and the eastern side of Texas. But wait, look what's forming here off towards the west. Another round of storms. Some of these could be nasty and certainly could prompt severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings, making yet a second round of storms overnight tonight for Dallas, Fort Worth, Waco, even down into Austin. So please be sure to stay with the Weather Channel and download our app on your TV. Existing cable and satellite subscribers can get the Weather Channel on Roku, Fire Stick, and on your smart TV for 24/7 access to the latest alerts, forecasts, local radar, and live coverage. And again, severe weather starting later today into tonight and then really ramps up throughout the midday tomorrow. Mark.
Yeah, it's one of those days that we just need everyone to be weather aware. Keep tuning in for multiple rounds of severe weather possibilities, and that just adds to the complexity. There's not really a moment here, over, say, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, where tomorrow we're going to be able to give you the all clear. The front that does give you the all clear doesn't come in until overnight tomorrow. So several rounds of severe weather. Each round of storms that comes through could go severe and have warnings with it. A likelihood of severe weather for tomorrow, including tornadoes. This is your Torcon. Look at the, a quick glance at just how high the risk will be for tornadoes. And when you see the 5s, or specifically the 7s, not only are tornadoes possible, but they are likely. And some of the upper echelon tornadoes, the real violent, destructive tornadoes are possible, and they could be on the ground for a long time. The ingredients are there to support tornadoes. They're also there to support very strong straight line winds, which we've seen in the past couple of days. Straight line wind damage can be very reminiscent, can look just the same as tornado damage. It's just that everything falls in one direction as opposed to swirling. Does that matter if it's your roof? Not that much. So pay attention tomorrow. Keep tuning in. Have a way to get those warnings wherever you are.
We log at the top of the world, a mile high into the mountains. That's where some of the best logging is.
It's absolutely insane up here.
Careful, careful, careful.
There's lots of things that can go wrong.
The mud just does not stop.
You can't stay on the road. You just hope you make it.
It's a battle against Mother Nature. It's not for everyone.
Let the fun begin.
You know, severe weather came across the south last week, Thursday into Friday, and left behind lots of tree damage, power issues, some damaged homes. This view happens to be from Coleman County, Alabama, where there was an EF1, and you were not alone. I think it was 38 confirmed tornadoes last time I looked from the event last week. And the same area is going to see severe weather again Thursday into Friday. Exactly a week removed and almost exactly the same area under the threat. This is the area of concern for tomorrow. As far west as East Texas, as far north as central Ohio, and just about everywhere in between. You notice those purple colors on the map. We don't get those all the time. Very likely that we will see severe weather within there, and that likelihood also does include tornadoes because we've got a lot of lift in the atmosphere, more than enough energy for those updrafts to bring that moisture up into the air, more than enough spin along an old boundary and a warm front in the region. But also that change in wind direction with height, known as shear. That's going to be at the top of the scales. More than enough shear to support spinning storms and thus tornadoes. The winds at about a mile up or so, 5,000 feet or so, coming out of the southwest, while the surface winds are out of the south. And so you put that low-level spin along with storms that will form, and you have a tornado chance. 7 out of 10 on the Torcon. What that means is tornadoes are possible, if not likely, and some long-lived, more dangerous type tornadoes are also possible. The models look at all those ingredients too and give you this, the significant tornado parameter. Look how it fills in the southeast from about lunchtime right on through the evening, getting into across Tennessee and Kentucky, as far north as Indiana and Ohio, kind of narrowing down a bit as we go into the overnight hours, but never going away. And that potential is still with us for more storms. Let's quickly look at how the models handle where we could see some rain. This is the warm front. Look at this. This is 5 a.m. pouring. And you might say, okay, that's going to protect us. And it might for some of you, if you get stable air, if you kind of stabilize through the day. That warm front actually lifts all the way to here by 2 p.m. And this whole area has a chance to recover. And these are all suggested to be rotating supercell thunderstorms. It's all out ahead of the front. The low pressure here, front back here, that's our cold front. These are all storms forming out ahead of the front. More than enough spin in the environment, more than enough lift to support those storms right on through the night. They continue as we cross over to the Eastern time zone, right on through the evening and then the overnight hours. Gosh, this is going to be a big time event. A lot of real estate coverage here, Chris, as we go through Thursday.
So let's take you city by city. We'll start here in Birmingham, Alabama, where Interstate 65 looks pretty good right now. Smooth sailing. Temperatures have made it into the mid-70s. We got a little bit of cloud cover, but otherwise fairly sunny today. Tomorrow this time, boy, are we in for a wild ride. Torcons are at 7 now. That includes you in Birmingham and across Vestavia Hills, Hoover, down to Ross Bridge, getting over towards Tuscaloosa yet again after some communities just south of you are still picking up from the pieces of several tornadoes we had last week. As you work your way southeast of Birmingham, you start to see that risk for tornadoes drop. Auburn, this will look like a Torcon of a 3 for you. There's a look at the timing again, starting off with morning rain. rain, heavy at times, but that won't be the severe stuff. It's what forms later on, say around lunchtime, perhaps a little bit after, into the latter half of the afternoon. And then I think by dinner time, a line starts to work its way through. That's the front, and then this clearing out. So by the late night hours, I think our severe threat finally winds down. But until then, it's going to be a busy day. Let's go to Memphis, Tennessee now, where we'll get in on the action a little bit earlier. The difference is here, we're going to have a lot of heavy rainfall. So while it's sunny out there right now, temperatures are pleasant out on the banks of the Mississippi River. Things are going to be very different this time tomorrow. Torcons are at a 7. In Memphis, we're sitting right on the fringe here. As you work your way into Arkansas, unlike last week, our tornado threat actually dims down a little bit, but still don't outrule a 5. You're seeing that up towards Dyersburg, areas into western Kentucky, Henderson, or Hopkinsville, getting into Paducah, all included in that risk 4 or 5. Memphis South, that's where we'll have Torcons as 7. The issue here is we're going to have a lot of activity early on. There will be a lot of cloud cover, a lot of heavy rainfall. That's going to help cool you down a little bit. That will help stabilize the atmosphere. How much clearing happens? How long of a break do we get before the supercells, the strong, gnarly stuff starts to fuel in? That'll be key, but supercells likely from Memphis south and into Middle Tennessee. Speaking of Middle Tennessee, let's take it to Nashville right now. Sunny, beautiful day. If you're heading out to the park to do some fun activities with the family, do it today. Tomorrow's going to be one of those days kind of cooped up inside. Torcons here have now been raised to a 7. That includes all of the Nashville metro area. And timing out this storms really is going to be indicative, I think, after lunchtime into the mid and latter half of your afternoon tomorrow.
And, you know, this is relatively minor compared to some of the severe weather that we could see as we work our way through the day on Thursday. You know, we can only heighten the words so much. We can only say this so many different ways. Hopefully it sinks in for those of you watching from this area, or if you have loved ones, friends, family in this area. Make sure they're weather aware. It's beautiful in the southeast today. I understand that many of you are not glued to the TV set today. It's beautiful, right? Blue skies, sunshine, but things are going to change in a big way. So get on the phone, make sure people here have a severe weather plan, make sure they know that tomorrow is not going to be the same as today. 7 out of 10 on the Torcon. You don't see that all that often. That's pretty high up there on the scale of 1 to 10. And it is not out of the question that this area actually gets upgraded by the Storm Prediction Center. We wind up with a 9 out of 10 by overnight or early tomorrow morning. It is something that we have to be aware of. That possibility is with us. Even if you don't get tornadoes, this is the general severe weather outlook for tomorrow, and there is going to be a lot of it. Straight line winds, enough wind to do damage, large hail, also a possibility. So, Chris, we just need people to stay weather aware for Thursday.
And let's get a look at the risk for flooding. That's something else that we've been monitoring, and we've had a lot of activity here in the northern Gulf Coast. Let's take it back just 24 hours. Notice the splotchy yellows, and especially here in Louisiana, oranges and reds. That's indicative of nearly a ½ foot to nearly 10 inches of rain. That's some of the reports here, some of the gauges we've seen just in the last day. You go back 48 hours, this number even gets higher, and we've been hit hard in New Orleans, especially south of you. Also into southern Mississippi, we're starting to see the rainfall pile up. Because of that, flood watches are up, flash flood watches from Baton Rouge back through Lake Pontchartrain, getting into the Mississippi Gulf Coast. These extend several counties inland up towards Hattiesburg, even Laurel, Mississippi, southwestern Alabama, Mobile, even parts of the western Florida Panhandle. You're included in that. All right, so there's a look at the rain. Most of it's been offshore. But just in the last hour, things starting to pop up. And look at this thunderstorm now north of Baton Rouge, about to head into Mississippi. So heavy rainfall. The good news is these are moving quickly. The bad news is when you look at our high-resolution future radar, you're going to notice a lot more of this continuing to feed in as we get into the latter half of the day. So let's walk you through the next several hours, take you to 5 p.m. and what it may look like. We could have a whole nasty line of storms, very heavy rainfall impacting your commute home, maybe picking up the kids from sports practice, or maybe just driving to the grocery store. Very heavy rain perhaps around Mobile, Pensacola, some of that getting up into Birmingham again as as we go into the overnight, and that will be the precursor. That's the warm front kind of lifting up ahead of tomorrow's severe weather outbreak potential. So there's a look at the storms on where we expect severe weather tonight. Again, remember, we're still watching you in Texas. I know it's been sunny here in Dallas and Fort Worth today, even Austin and Waco, but overnight tonight, it is going to get stormy. A lot of frequent lightning, very heavy rainfall, and there will be numerous rounds. The first one coming through later this evening around dinner time, maybe a little bit after. That then working its way eastward. Could have some very strong damaging winds and large hail with some of those storms. And then watch what happens here off to the west. These storms really firing up from just west of the hill country, feeding right back into Dallas, Fort Worth, and areas along that I-35 corridor as we go into the early morning hours tomorrow before things finally wind down here. And then all the activity blossoms farther off towards the east. Mark?
Overnight storms and then a big day Thursday. Out ahead of all of this, we have a soggy day, I guess is the best way to put it, for D.C. and for Philly. Low clouds, rain continuing, especially Philly to New York. That corridor for the rest of the day is going to be really quite rainy. You can see that right now. Here's Philly. You've seen rounds of heavier rain coming through. It's moving through Trenton and New Brunswick. New York City has been avoiding most of the rain. It's not going to for the rest of the day. That rain's moving in, and it's not going to leave really for the rest of the day. You can see here our forecast continues right on through the rush hour time frame through this evening. Still raining, heavy rain at times for the Jersey Shore for the beginning of the night. And this has a little wave of low pressure that forms. It actually enhances that rain a little bit longer, keeps it unsettled for the I-95 corridor of northern New England, Boston to Portland, continuing right on through the night. Don't forget, we've got this next storm system coming towards the Great Lakes. This front arrives Friday night. It could have severe weather with it too.
As people in parts of the South prepare for tomorrow's major severe threats, many are still recovering from last week's tornado outbreak. There were at least 48 confirmed tornadoes stretching from Oklahoma to the mid-Atlantic. You're looking at video from Chilton County. Among those, here was an EF2 touching down in this part of the state. Well, let's take a closer look at tomorrow's severe weather chances. Torcon levels are now up to a 7 for many areas from central northern Mississippi and Alabama back through much of middle Tennessee, Nashville, Memphis, Jackson, Tennessee, as well as Jackson, Mississippi, Tupelo, Birmingham, even Huntsville, all included in that risk. And many people think that a highway overpass provides a safe haven from a tornado. Well, meteorologist Stephanie Abrams shows us why that's actually a big mistake.
Have you heard the myth of hiding under an overpass if you're threatened by a tornado while driving on the road? Well, according to NOAA, a vehicle is a very risky place to be if a twister is threatening you. Sometimes people find they have little time and very few options. Might remember this video from 1991. Hang on to the curb. Several people seeking shelter from an approaching tornado. All of this is sturdy concrete. It might seem like a really good idea, right? But most tornado deaths and injuries occur from flying debris. That debris basically becomes missiles. The higher you climb, the faster the winds are going to get. And also, as you get that passage to narrow, that can also increase the wind speeds. So the reality is, seeking shelter under an overpass offers you no protection from a tornado.
Lots faster, lots faster.
Your safest bet if you can't seek shelter indoors and you're threatened by a tornado is to pull over, park, leave your seatbelt on, and then duck below the window and cover your head.
Wait, no, I got it.
Or if you can find a ditch that is noticeably lower than the roadway and away from your vehicle, you want to lay down in that ditch and cover your head. Listen to weather warnings, have a plan, and you will greatly increase your chances of survival during severe storms.
Great reminders, and I think it's still a lot of people tend to, I think instinctively want to have some sort of cover anytime there's bad weather. So I see the confusion there, but again, that enhances those winds if you're underneath an overpass.
Yeah, I also, getting out of the car and getting into the ditch, I know that is at times a recommended move. I would have a hard time doing it myself, to leave the protection of the walls and the walls of the car, the seat belt, the airbags. But the best advice we can give you is to not be in that position in the first place where you have to make that kind of last-second, no other option type decisions. And to do that, you need to be weather aware. You need to know when severe weather is coming, including tornadoes, and what roads not to be on for those times. This evening into the overnight hours, it is I-35 in Texas, including the Dallas area, and then north and east towards Texarkana, so portions of I-30 as well as I-20 could have severe weather and maybe even tornadoes during the overnight hours. So we're following that story because this upper level low is going to help crank out a new surface feature. We're already seeing a little bit of signs of that, right? You see all those storms that are starting to pop up. That's out ahead of where our area of low pressure is developing now. So it's begun. This is just the very beginning, but it has begun. Scattered storms there on either side of I-20, well west of Fort Worth. Tomorrow, totally different regime. That low pressure area really takes off. Much stronger winds and much more moisture, much more surface flow out of the south and stronger winds aloft. It's all coming together to give us severe weather. Very likely severe weather tomorrow, including tornadoes. 7 out of 10 on the Torcon over a large area of the south. So large, long-lived tornadoes are possible, especially considering all the ingredients for severe storms and tornadoes will be medium to high. We'll also have gusty straight line winds tomorrow and a hail chance as our low moves through. So all modes of severe weather are certainly possible. By Friday, that front is moving through the rest of the southeast. We could have severe storms in central Georgia, the Carolinas, near our upper level low that swings into places in northern Mississippi. And we can't rule out strong storms by the end of Friday, even into the northeast corridor. Believe it or not, a place like Philadelphia could be pushing 80 degrees on Friday thanks to strong southerly winds out ahead of this front. So it's going to be screaming that moisture north. That could also support some strong storms. So Chris, this is a multi-day event that we'll be following over the majority of the eastern 2/3 of the country.
And it starts tonight here in parts of the southern plains. So we'll monitor it very closely. We're also tracking a wintry system in the far northern reaches of Minnesota. Minneapolis, you're not even far enough north to get in on the snow. It's a rain event here, 40 degrees raw, also very gusty. I want to briefly talk about the winds. We've got snow and it's persisting around Duluth where we'll see accumulations tally another couple of inches before all is said and done. That snow then winds down, stays across the northern Wisconsin and the UP. Aside from that, a cold rain, also very windy. We got to talk about this. A dangerous wind event kind of setting up here across the Ohio River Valley, northern Ohio, Indiana, as well as parts of Lakes Erie and Ontario. You're in store for very high winds. High wind watches are up and expect wind gusts easily in excess of 40 to 50 plus miles per hour.
Who is USAA?
Water availability is going from bad to worse for many states that rely on the drought-stricken Colorado River. In Utah, the drought is so bad that a state of emergency has been declared. This week, the Weather Channel and our Pattern Climate Unit are examining the makings of a mega drought. Let's bring in our chief environmental correspondent, Dave Malkoff. Dave?
Hey there. We are looking at all these different things that are happening with this drought. And in that, we went from southern Nevada all the way up to northern Colorado, where these warmer days are leading to less snow, and that's making it harder to make a living. In rural northern Colorado, Matt and Christy Belton ranch the old-fashioned way.
I get all my exercise doing this.
A horse team never needs a battery jump start. No matter how cold it is, they always start. Everyone does.
In the winter, the cattle need fed every day. Christmas, New Year's, doesn't matter. We feed every day. There's no Sundays west Omaha in this business.
It may look like there's a lot of snow here in the Colorado Rockies, but all of this is not nearly the amount of snow they need.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
These warmer, less snowy winters in Colorado echo through the canyons of Arizona, impacting more than 40 million people downstream.
There are natural cycles, but there's also kind of the humans contributing to the rise in temperatures in a time that wouldn't necessarily be happening otherwise.
The snow that does melt sets out on a 1,400-mile winding journey to the Colorado River Delta in Sonora, Mexico. And along the way, the drought has left this massive dry ring around Lake Mead. In the last 20 years, America's largest reservoir has lost some 4.5 trillion gallons of water.
And the rain doesn't come like it used to in June and July and throughout the summer.
Matt tells us this snowfall crisis has all kinds of ripple effects, like the price of hay going through the roof. So farmers and cities are already cutting back on the water they use.
We've been able to sort of hold off, I think, a real crisis. Current projections are showing for the lake to drop even further during 2022.
And if the trend continues, we could be looking at a mega drought in the making.
Hopefully it'll come back in 4 or 5 years and we'll start getting moisture like we used to.
For now, the Beltons are just moving forward.
Because I can't feed too much in one spot.
There may be no Sundays off west of Omaha, but more sunny days and less snow is already a reality on this mountain ranch.
Really well done piece there, Dave. So, you know, March and April, the peak months for snowpack, but we are below average for the year so far. Are the cattle ranchers that you've talked to and gotten a feel for hopeful or worried about the next few weeks?
Well, you never know what's going to happen in the future. There could be snowstorms that are coming in, but as you've been showing all day, some of that snow is going to go to Albuquerque and not as far north as Steamboat Springs, where those folks are up there. They're not even going to get any snow from this round of snowfall that's come down.
And yeah, what falls east of the divide doesn't necessarily funnel back into the Colorado River, and it eventually goes to the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Basin.
It's so, 2 different states almost, yeah.
Exactly. And now, are some of the cattle ranchers that you spoke to worried that in a few years, ranching may no longer be a sustainable way to make a living due to the changing weather?
Well, it kind of depends on how you do it, Chris. There are ways to keep on ranching in a way that you use less water and you don't trample the land so much the way that the cattle do right now. Actually, you can take a new technology and section off parts of your land and just put the cattle in one spot. And that is exactly what we're going to show you tomorrow. We're going to take you to a ranch that is not very far from the ranch we showed you today, where they're doing cattle ranching in a new way.
That's going to be really interesting. One last question for you, Dave. Would you say it's better to have an above-average snow year so it slowly can drain into the basin, or would you have an above-average precip year, say, in the summertime?
Well, it's better to have both, but look at this. You can see that we are slightly below average here. But think of the Colorado River. The Colorado River and the snowfall is your annual income, and the Lake Mead and Lake Powell are your savings accounts, and we're pulling from these savings accounts when you don't have as much annual income coming in.
All right, Dave Malkoff, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing more of the stories from the makings of a mega drought. We want to take you to the Colorado River, Lake Havasu City, Arizona right now. It is windy, but at least it's sunny and beautiful this spring.
You know they're out there. Morning.
Record-shattering rain in some Gulf Coast cities yesterday, and that led to scenes like this. Roads covered in water here in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and the rain isn't over for a lot of places where flash flood watches remain in effect. And the rain isn't over along the Gulf Coast. nor in the northeast either. We've got an active day today. Take a look at all the activity we're tracking on our radar across the country. We've got a system coming into the Pacific Northwest, more rain and snow for the mountains. We've got a snowstorm into Albuquerque and parts of New Mexico. That's our severe weather setup that will push into Texas tonight and the southeast tomorrow. And we're also tracking some winter weather across the far northern Great Lakes and into the upper Midwest. But the threat for damaging storms is really going to be key, especially as we head into the next few days. It all starts tonight. We've already seen some damage here in Louisiana. Roofs ripped off of some homes, trees and power lines down. Tomorrow, another severe weather threat developing, and the risk for damaging tornadoes is high. A few of the cities that we're concerned about for tomorrow include you in Memphis, where it's sunny today. Beautiful, picture-perfect spring day here in March, 75 degrees. Get the dogs extra tired this afternoon because by the morning, rain will already have arrived, and then we've got a stormy day late in the morning and throughout much of the afternoon. Not just here, but down Interstate 55 to Jackson, Mississippi. We're watching you too very closely as we are included in that high-risk zone for tornadoes. And the threat, some of these tornadoes could even be destructive. So let's break it down and talk about the setup and the timing with storm specialist Mark Elliott tracking it all right now.
This is one of those really dangerous setups, Chris. There's really no other way to put it. When you have all the ingredients coming together into a, let's face it, a vulnerable population, because storms already came through this same area a week ago. So some structures are weakened. Some trees are weakened compared to where they were a week ago. Also, we know that there's a higher percentage of mobile and modular kind of manufactured homes across this portion of the South, and those types of structures don't protect you the same way. If you know people that live in the South, today is the time to give them a call. It's beautiful out today. People are out doing their errands. They're out doing their gardening. They're out playing with the kids. They're not sitting and watching right now and getting that extra alert. They might not until it's too late. So if you're seeing this, give them a call. Make sure that they are weather aware for tomorrow. Make sure that those people have a severe weather plan, because not only is it very likely that we're going to see severe weather, but also pretty likely that we're going to see tornadoes, and a good number of them as well. The energy is going to be there. The available energy for the storms is going to really build in as we go through the day. This front, sometimes because of fronts nearby, you can get extra clouds and extra rain, and that stabilizes the atmosphere and protects some areas from getting the worst of the weather. This front could have severe weather along it as early as, say, 5 or 6 a.m. However, it races north. And so I think there's enough time for the atmosphere to recover, where we have so much moisture streaming north and strong southerly winds that you could have another round of severe weather in the afternoon in many of the same locations. And then the cold front comes in with strong winds aloft that could also have severe weather, including tornadoes along it. So 2, if not 3 rounds of severe weather, including tornadoes, across the southeast tomorrow. That's why our numbers are as high as they are. 7 out of 10 on the Torcon, a chance of significant tornadoes that are on the ground for a long time and could be the more destructive type of tornadoes at that. The models take all that into account and try to put out a risk of where the significant tornadoes could be. And look how this zone expands and blossoms as we go through the day Thursday. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, morning into lunchtime. And it doesn't really end there. In fact, you could make the argument that it expands even more by the evening through Tennessee, through Kentucky, into Georgia. The conditions are ripe for tornadoes for tomorrow. And overnight, along our line of storms, there could be those embedded circulations that still give you some tornadoes. Maybe not as widespread by 3 a.m. Friday overnight, but not zero chances either. So you need to stay weather aware right on into the nighttime hours. A lot of spin through the atmosphere. When you have this much shear, meaning different winds and different wind speeds with height, you can indeed set the stage for where there's going to be tornadoes throughout the day. But let me show you this. This is what the model says the radar could look like. This is 5 a.m. Look at the coverage here. So much rain already by Thursday morning, and you're like, whew, we're out of the woods. We're not going to see big storms later in the day. Not necessarily the case. Look how fast these showers and storms leave to the north. And in their wake, by the afternoon, we reset the atmosphere. This is the tornado time frame. 2 o'clock, we could have several tornadoes, all with warnings, all at the same time, kind of tracking along these lines, going towards the north and east from the southwest, which means many counties could see multiple tornadoes all in a row coming up from the south, going over the same areas again and again and again, as these storms could all be rotating. That kind of push of storms goes through Birmingham, Huntsville, Nashville, all day and continues to peak as we go into the evening hours. And then it is nighttime and we kind of lose some of that spin and some of that tornado threat, but not all of it. The models are still putting out these individual storms through Ohio, through Kentucky, eastern Tennessee. And if you look at these, they all have that kind of kidney bean shape or that appendage on the southwest side. What that tells us is that the storms could still be rotating even into the overnight this far north. Ohio, right? You might not be in the 7 on the Torcon list, but you still have Torcons this far north, and I think there will be spinning storms all the way into the Ohio River Valley, not to mention the storms along the cold front, Chris, that continue through the overnight through the rest of the southeast, and then into Friday for the rest of the eastern seaboard. A busy, busy setup for the next couple of days.
Yeah, we'll have to watch closely that Ohio River Valley for the threat of increasing severe weather chances later tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night. Let's time out some cities here as we head into your Thursday. Right now, beautiful from Arkansas. Still kind of cloudy, but at least it's dry here in Atlanta. That's keeping your temperatures comfortable. 73 degrees, 76 with that sunshine here in the capital of the natural state. We'll start in Mississippi, here in the capital of Magnolia State, Jackson. Again, we're in that pink, high risk for tornadoes. That's a 7. And then you really see that extend into northern parts of the state, getting into Tennessee. South of Jackson, your threat goes down. So Brookhaven, Mississippi, remember we had that confirmed tornado last week. Our chances this time, they're not 0, and we still have to watch for the risk of damaging winds, hail, but our Torcons are a little bit lower here into central and southern Mississippi than they were last week. Jackson, here's how it kind of unfolds. Timing this out along Interstate 55, also along parts of I-20. Showers in the morning and then lingering through about lunchtime, but a lot of the heavy rain will be to your north. So we may actually have some sunshine. That would be concerning, especially as storms really start to fire up. These would be the supercells. These would be the nasty storms to watch. And then our front comes through around dinner, maybe a little bit before, and we're done. That's it. This is not going to be an overnight threat here for central Mississippi. Different story as we work our way into northern Alabama and parts of Tennessee, as well as northwest Georgia. Say from Cloudland Canyon, getting to Chattanooga, here along I-24, Murfreesboro, Nashville, Tullahoma, down to Fort Payne, that I-59 corridor, all the way back towards Huntsville. You're all in a risk here for a 7. This is a high risk, and this will continue even after the sun sets. So timing this out, this may be a spot we really have to watch. Not early on in the day, but we may not have as much widespread rain activity as what we'll see to the north and also to the west. So that may give us time to kind of refresh the atmosphere for the storms to really tap into by the time we get into lunchtime and then later in the afternoon. Look at the storms here. The high resolution future radar is pinpointing that they're not going to exactly move like this. It just paints an idea of what the radar may look like, but it shows you some concerning signs as our front then works through by about midnight, and then we clear things out from there. And one last stop here in central Arkansas. Torcons are a little bit lower here this go around. We're looking at a 3, and then to the west or to the east of you, as you work your way towards Memphis, your Torcons start to rapidly increase to a 5 and then 7 by the time you get to the Mississippi River Valley. There's a look at the timing. We'll have heavy rainfall and some flashes of lightning overnight into the early morning hours. There's 8 a.m. more storms working through. That's probably not going to be tornadic. We'll maybe have some damaging winds, a risk of some of the storms kind of forming in Texas overnight tonight. But then as we go to the afternoon, we'll get a line of storms and some more activity to kind of fire up here in the central part of the state. Those will be the ones to watch. But I think before dinner time, our threat really kind of dies out, lingering storms. Meanwhile, here in Atlanta, kind of on the periphery mark yet again, the northwest side of the city seeing that higher risk, especially for tornadoes as you work your way up I-75 into Chattanooga.
Yeah, a function of the Appalachian chain as well. Sometimes you get some low clouds and some cooler air there that pours into the Atlanta area and stabilizes that atmosphere just just a little bit more than, say, on the other side of those mountains into northwest portions of the state where the risk is higher. We're talking about the southeast still, or again, because remember yesterday we had a storm threat as well, specifically right along the Gulf Coast. This is what it looked like about 24 hours ago, almost exactly, in the New Orleans area. It was pouring. It was raining to beat the band, right? That's one of those phrases that I don't know where it comes from or totally what it means. But in any case, it was really coming down yesterday in the New Orleans area. It wound up being one of your all-time wettest days. For March, it was number 2. You wouldn't know it by looking at the streets today. They're quiet, the sun is out, but there are some storms building again. And so a flood risk is there across much of the Gulf Coast states because of how much rain we had yesterday. Again, New Orleans had 5.54 inches of rain yesterday over, basically a 5-hour time frame. So you had almost an inch per hour rainfall all afternoon. It was wild. It was a top 20 wettest day ever. Not just, a March day, but ever, all time. Lake Charles, second wettest March day, just under 5 inches for you. Quite the footprint of rain here over the past 24 hours. Look at that, from southern Mississippi, coastal Louisiana in particular. All I can say is thank goodness this boundary didn't stall out here, right, and have this kind of rain right over New Orleans. Because if you had that, we'd still be pumping out the water from the French Quarter. Instead, you had a couple hours there where it got a little bit dicey and the pumps were working as fast as they could, but they were able to largely keep up. Now, we're seeing storms firing up again. This is the I-10 corridor right in here. We're seeing storms north of I-10 now. The models are fairly consistent in suggesting that southern Mississippi really blossoms with severe storms, potentially, but certainly heavy rain-producing storms for the rest of the afternoon and evening. And so combine that with yesterday's rain, and you've got the chance for flooding. Flood watches in place through Friday. Here's that model I suggested, very, higher amounts, much more coverage of storms as we go into the evening hours. Those continue to fill in. That is the leading edge of that Gulf of Mexico moisture return, setting the stage for Thursday's severe weather. And so, yes, you'll have this round of storms come through overnight. It starts off your Thursday threat early, and then we'll have a couple of rounds of severe storms throughout the day tomorrow, Chris.
So let's talk about severe weather these next several hours. Starting tonight, things are changing, even though it's been such a nice day here in Dallas and Shreveport. We have seen a few stronger winds. Temperatures have really come up now. We're flirting with nearly 80 degrees at both of these locations. Notice the skies starting to get some high clouds appearing there in North Texas. That's the leading edge of some thunderstorms that are starting to form in the central part of the state. We'll get to that. I want to show you what's happening here in Louisiana. Again, nothing severe. The issue here is going to be that flash flood concern, especially with how much rain that we've already picked up. We are watching some thunderstorms now crossing out of Louisiana, moving into southern Mississippi, so heads up there along I-55. And a lot of that's going to race northward very quickly. This is all thanks to our warm front out ahead of our main storm system, which is actually back out towards the high plains and parts of New Mexico. That's still giving us quite a bit of wintry weather, closing down parts of I-40 here east of Albuquerque. But there's the storms kind of smack dab in between, and they're really going to start getting fueled as our whole storm system pulls across the southern plains and into the mid-south. That's where we have that risk for severe weather, especially here overnight tonight from the hill country back up through the Metroplex, and then a possibility of those storms kind of holding on to their strength as they work into southern Arkansas. So here's how it all unfolds. Individual thunderstorms then getting stronger as we go towards late this afternoon into this evening. That then getting into the Metroplex, say around dinner time. And then really putting down heavy rainfall, frequent lightning, a whole batch of storms. And then look at how active the radar continues. We could have some flash flood concerns here of our own with numerous rounds of heavy rainfall all night long in central Texas. Stay with the Weather Channel and download our app on your TV. Existing cable and satellite subscribers can get the Weather Channel on Roku, Fire Stick, and on your smart TV for 24/7 access to the latest alerts, forecast, local radar, and live coverage. And we've got a busy 24, 36, 48 plus hours to get through before things finally quiet down. It's been a very active pattern this March.
Yeah, about every week.
Every week,
see a new round.
Right on cue.
And this one is almost exactly, a week removed from the last severe event, almost exactly in the same exact location. So if you are in the southeast, you need to be weather aware for tomorrow. For multiple rounds of severe weather, we've been talking about that Gulf of Mexico moisture and warm front lifting north. That could have rain and severe weather overnight into tomorrow morning. But that front keeps going, and you see another round tomorrow afternoon, and the last round coming in as we go through the overnight as our cold front moves through west to east through this area. Until that front moves through, you do not have the all clear, because you will have the potential for big storms, maybe rotating storms in multiple different times, despite having rain earlier in the day. That's not always the case, but it will be the case tomorrow. 5 to 7 on the Torcon. When you see numbers like that, you have to give them a little bit of extra credit, right? You have to give them a little bit of extra concern. Many tornadoes possible tomorrow.
It was just living in the moment of disbelief.
We really were caught off guard.
We couldn't leave. We were stuck there.
There was going to be nothing we could do except try to make it through safely.
That is the most scared that I have felt in my life.
Oh my God!
It's surreal.
Holy!
Well, a severe weather outbreak came through the south last week, and you remember the scenes in so many southern communities. These happen to be from Coleman County, Alabama. The EF1 tornado came through. It's just north of Birmingham. Ripped trees, took off metal siding. It was a mess, and it's still a mess for so many of you. The cleanup continues. It's not an instant process when storms like this come through, which is why it is so scary or dangerous or damaging when another severe weather event comes in almost the same exact places. Tomorrow, severe weather across the south in almost exactly the same area that had severe weather a week ago. Does it mean you won't see it if you had it last week? No. Does it mean you won't see it if you didn't have it last week? Also no. If you are in the colors on this map, you have to treat this as its own entity, that you could have severe weather again, including wind, hail, and tornadoes. Mississippi, Alabama, North Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, late in the day as far north as Ohio, even central Ohio, could indeed have tornadoes as we go through the day. There's going to be plenty of lift for these storms to get going. There's different wind directions with height. At the surface, they're coming out of the south and really cranking that low-level moisture. And so the more moisture there is, all things being equal, the easier it is to get lift, to get that air to rise and to condense into clouds and eventually storms. Plus a low cloud base, well, let's face it, it's easier for a tornado to come out of the bottom of that cloud base if it's closer to the ground. So that high amount of moisture is a crucial component. Tomorrow, we're also going to have turning winds coming out of the southwest aloft, and so that spin will help to give us tornadoes also. And so we put all that together and we start seeing some significant numbers on the Torcon, 5s, 7s. Overnight, when we get the new update from the Storm Prediction Center, or maybe tomorrow morning's update, and they fine-tune an area even more so, maybe there'll be even more of these ingredients, we could have some 9s on here again. Scary, scary setup for tornadoes, including large tornadoes, long track dangerous tornadoes. When you see the coverage of this, this is the significant tornado parameter, where the modeling suggests that the ingredients are at least possible to support the bigger tornadoes. Look how much coverage there is as we go through the day Thursday and even into Thursday overnight. Chris, when you see a setup like this, you have to stay weather aware. Fast changing tornado setup and many, many warnings possible all at the same time tomorrow.
Yeah, you're going to be very busy. A far cry from what we're seeing out there today. Partly cloudy skies, not bad here in Birmingham, 76 degrees, so it is warm. Traffic flowing nicely on I-65. Our Torcon for tomorrow, though, 7. That puts us in the high risk. Let's take you here into northern Alabama. Birmingham, yet again, after last week's severe weather outbreak. Here we go. Similar situation, and again, a high Torcon. I think the storms will come through a little bit earlier, so we're going to see things start to get active, say, late morning, and certainly throughout much of the midday hours. So after lunchtime through about dinner time, that's going to be the key timing, I think, for most of these storms. So some rain early on, that won't necessarily be severe. Things kind of quiet down a little bit for a few hours. Then we get towards 2, 3 o'clock, and look what starts to happen along parts of Interstate 20, back towards Tuscaloosa. Remember, there are numerous communities and families here in the central part of the state still picking up the pieces after the tornadoes that ravaged their town last week. And here we go again with more severe thunderstorms, some of which are likely going to have tornadoes with them as that all then clears out before midnight tonight or tomorrow night. Memphis, similar story, different timing. So our situation here, high risk yet again. So we're looking at a 7 on the Torcon. Not today, though. You don't even know there's bad weather on the way, just looking at the skies. It's clear as can be over the Mississippi River. Let's focus in, though, on our Torcon. So you go north out of Memphis and you go west, you start to cut back on your tornado chances. East of here is where you're really going to see that higher risk. So all of northern Mississippi, Oxford, Tupelo, back towards Corinth and Holly Springs, Jackson, Tennessee, you're all in that high risk, along with all of the Memphis metro area. So numerous storms going through, likely going to wake you up, especially if you're getting up at them early on in the day. This stuff, though, isn't going to be the strongest of the storms we see in the afternoon. Storms becoming a lot more organized and certainly more severe as we get into the afternoon. There's lunchtime early on in the day, and then continuing for a few more hours before things then finally quiet down. I think by dinner time, our threat for severe weather really kind of winds down as all of this pushes east. Speaking of east, let's go to Nashville. You know, earlier we were looking at a Torcon of a 5. That has now changed. All right, we're thinking that we're going to have a better shot of tornadoes as we go into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. So 7s now for much of Middle Tennessee, including Franklin, Smyrna. So again, the higher that risk, the higher your risk for tornadoes. Timing this out, widespread showers, thunderstorms early on in the day, and then the severe weather comes in after lunchtime and then throughout the latter half of the afternoon, getting into dinner time, and this is really something to take notice of.
Is mealtime a struggle? Introducing Ore-Ida Potato Pay.
Well, we've got some, repeated storm patterns. We'll put it that way. This is central Texas. Storms rolled through the Bertram area on Sunday. We had strong straight-line winds. But look at the building damage here. If you were just looking at this, you might have said, okay, a tornado came through. But no, National Weather Service said, no, this was just straight line winds. So the important message here is that straight line winds can give damage that looks very similar to a tornado. If we're talking about strong straight line winds coming your way, you need to shelter as if a tornado is coming, because who cares at the end of the day whether it was straight winds or swirling winds that did this to your property. Crews are out there trying to clean up. They're getting the traffic lights back on. They're really picking up the pieces. And there is more severe weather on the way. As early as overnight tonight, we could see severe weather in Texas, central Texas. This stretches out, though, tomorrow. This map is for tomorrow's severe weather threat. This is the big one that we've been warning you about. Thursday through the southeast, 7s on the Torcon. When you see a 7, it means tornadoes are likely, and also possible will be the larger, more destructive tornadoes that could be on the ground for a long time. Again, it's not just a tornado threat. Severe weather possibility, if not likelihood, across much of the east. Wind, hail, and a tornado threat. Chris.
And then on the southern end of the spectrum, we're looking at more heavy rain leading to some flooding. Gloomy skies today in Pensacola Beach, Florida. We had a little bit of sunshine, but temperatures haven't really rebounded a lot. So kind of chilly for your beach plans. That's why the sands aren't packed, even though if you are here for spring break. Hopefully there are brighter days ahead. Doesn't look like it's going to be in the short term, but we'll see what happens later on this weekend. 71 degrees there. You head west of Pensacola. That's when you really get into some of the heaviest of rainfall the last day to 2 days. Louisiana bearing the brunt. That's what we've been pinpointing. Thankfully, this area can handle a lot of rain, but rivers are high, and there are likely a lot of ponding, and even just in your backyard, we had nearly 5 inches of rain just in the last 24 hours. In New Orleans and some areas south of there have seen a lot more than that. So flash flood watches are up. They include Macomb, Mississippi, Hattiesburg for the development of what happens later on this afternoon and into tonight, as well as tomorrow. Mobile, you're included. Pensacola, flash flood watch for you. New Orleans, much of southern and eastern Louisiana. So a live look at our active radar right now. We've got a few thunderstorms now starting to pop up just south of Biloxi and Gulfport. Those may make it on shore in the next hour or two, so we'll watch Pensacola. Some more thunderstorms kind of blossoming here near the Mississippi-Louisiana state line north of Interstate 10. A closer up view along I-10, pretty quiet right now. Won't be that way for much longer. And again, as we go into the next few hours, look at what the high-resolution future radar is saying. We get a warm front that kind of surge northward, and it will spark off numerous rounds. Not really severe weather, but heavy rainfall, certainly torrential downpours, and frequent lightning as we go into the next 24 hours. Also watching severe weather that will be taking shape here in Texas. Very busy night ahead for Dallas. Take a look at what to expect as we go towards dinner time. These will also have supercell potential, meaning severe weather likely. And the risk here for a tornado, not off the table either. That's round number one. And then, Mark, look at this. Round number two really coming in. So a long night ahead for Dallas, Austin, Fort Worth, and then getting east from there.
Yeah, and gosh, the east is really going to be active on Thursday. Out ahead of all of this is the northeast corridor, where it has been a dreary day. Low clouds around the nation's capital, rain in Philadelphia with temperatures stuck in the 50s all day. We've seen worse temperatures than that, I suppose, this time of year. Spring kind of infamous for either being summer or winter and not much in between unless it's raining like today. This is your in-between temperature day as the rain is coming through. A lot of rain at that. Look at Philly. Look at New York now. New York is raining. The Capital District has been raining all day around Albany. That rain in Jersey, though, is really going to pick up. You can see that we have that rain coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. And so all day now, the rest of the day, you're stuck in the slop. At times, some heavier, steadier rains through this evening. We'll continue to see that, at least for the Jersey Shore, into the overnight hours. And then it starts to move even farther north and east. A bit of a wave of low pressure on that front as well as it moves through New England. And so we never fully get rid of that rain until, into kind of mid-morning for Portland and for Boston. The clouds have some staying power there. Winds right now, not too bad, but you can see that area of low pressure starting to form just off the coast. I bring this up because we're going to change this a bit or a lot as we work our way into Friday. Remember, the southeast storm goes north, and that low winds up over the Great Lakes. Very windy system with this. This cold front will eventually swing all the way through the northeast, but look at the southerly winds out ahead of it. That will allow for much more warmth and much more moisture to come into play as we go through the day, Thursday night into Friday, really 35, 45 mile per hour winds. They will be screaming out of the south and bring temperatures that will be close to 80 in Philadelphia Friday.
Alice loves the scent of gain so.
Welcome back into Weather Center Live. As people in parts of the South prepare for tomorrow's major severe threat, many are still recovering from last week's tornado outbreak. There were at least 48 confirmed tornadoes stretching from Oklahoma to the mid-Atlantic. Among those was an EF2 touching down here in Chilton County, Alabama, and you can see some of the devastation left behind. Well, let's get a closer look at tomorrow's severe weather chances, and it includes places like Chilton County, Alabama, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Tupelo, Holly Springs, Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, Tennessee, and now we're including Nashville in that high risk. So areas farther north, notice those fives get all the way into central Kentucky, Bowling Green, Elizabethtown, Louisville. You've even got a torque on of a 3, and that extends into southern Ohio as well as eastern Kentucky and parts of West Virginia. Well, many people think that a highway overpass provides safe haven from a tornado. Meteorologist Stephanie Abrams shows us why that's actually a big mistake.
Have you heard the myth of hiding under an overpass if you're threatened by a tornado while driving on the road? Well, according to NOAA, a vehicle is a very risky place to be if a twister is threatening you. Sometimes people find they have little time and very few options. Might remember this video from 1991. Hang on to the girder. Several people seeking shelter from an approaching tornado. All of this is sturdy concrete. It might seem like a really good idea, right? But most tornado deaths and injuries occur from flying debris. That debris basically becomes missiles. The higher you climb, the faster the winds are going to get. And also, as you get that passage to narrow, that can also increase the wind speeds. So the reality is, seeking shelter under an overpass offers you no protection from a tornado.
Lots faster, lots faster.
Your safest bet if you can't seek shelter indoors and you're threatened by a tornado is to pull over, park, leave your seatbelt on, and then duck below the window and cover your head.
Wait, no. I got it.
Or if you can find a ditch that is noticeably lower than the roadway and away from your vehicle, you want to lay down in that ditch and cover your head. Listen to weather warnings, have a plan, and you will greatly increase your chances of survival during severe storms.
And good reminders, Mark, especially as we head into another busy day. It's unavoidable. There will be people traveling, especially cross-country, truckers, all that transportation.
Yep.
And some of them are going to be traveling during crunch time.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you can do. You can have those apps on your phone that kind of follow you, and so it knows what county you're in, even when you don't, when you're on the road. But also you can stay weather aware and just not put yourself in that situation. If you can change your plans, if you can change your travel for overnight tonight or tomorrow, that is the best advice, because you don't want to have to be in that situation where you have to choose, do I stay in the car with the seatbelt on and the airbags because a tornado is coming, or do I abandon the car and try to get into a ditch and a tornado is coming? Both of those are terrible options. Okay, so just try not to put yourself in that situation. It's really the best advice we've got for you. Overnight storms fire off in Texas. That's the beginning of our severe weather event that will happen over the next 24 to 48 hours. Our low pressure area is forming right in here. It is starting now. We see a little bit of that swirl. We see some storms forming along that line, including now south of San Angelo. We were watching some storms here around the I-20 corridor, and now as we look a little bit further south, we also have some of those storms as well. Let's see if we have the high-resolution radars on across that area. Right there, we've got some storms near Brady. Not a bad-looking storm. That could be the first one that gets a severe thunderstorm warning for tonight. We'll have to watch that one carefully. Nice little lightning jump there as well. So separating out those charges, maybe some hail and some wind getting organized with that storm. Chris, tomorrow is the big day. There's no other way to put it. Big storms, everyone needs to be ready for wind, hail, and tornadoes tomorrow.
And then on top of that, we still are tracking some winter weather, believe it or not. We also have a high wind event heading for the Midwest we want to talk about. Tomorrow is really going to be a windy day, and we've already seen the winds here in Minneapolis. In fact, we've got high wind watches now that extend all the way back into Ohio, Indiana, and even parts of northern Pennsylvania, western New York. Let's show you this. Along with that, snow, believe it or not, in the Arrowhead of Minnesota. Decent snow here on the western shores of Lake Superior. Some of that transitioning in northern Wisconsin, and we'll also see that perhaps in the UP. Otherwise, it's cold rain, but where you work your way south, we don't have a lot of precip, but we're going to have a lot of wind, and that's something we have to watch. So this could actually cause power outages, and we don't want it to catch you by surprise. Take a look at the winds right now. Gusting in Chicago to 40 miles per hour. Indianapolis, we're gusting over 48 miles per hour, and those high winds about to start to get into that I-70 corridor. So here's where we go this afternoon and overnight. Winds staying strong, especially through the Great Lakes, Detroit, Chicago, Green Bay. And again, winds will continue to persist even after the sun sets. Very gusty there for parts of the Great Lakes. And then for tomorrow, we've got high wind watches. That includes us through central Ohio, parts of northern Indiana, and even western PA. Pittsburgh, you're included in that for the chance of gusts that could exceed over 50 miles per hour. Water availability is going from bad to worse for many states that rely on the drought-stricken Colorado River. In Utah, the drought is so bad that a state of emergency has been declared. This week, the Weather Channel and our Pattern Climate Unit are examining the makings of a mega drought. Let's bring in our chief environmental correspondent, Dave Malkoff. Dave?
Hey there. We are looking at all these different things that are happening with this drought. And in that, we went from southern Nevada all the way up to northern Colorado, where these warmer days are leading to less snow, and that's making it harder to make a living.
In rural northern Colorado, Matt and Christy Belton ranch the old-fashioned way.
I get all my exercise doing this.
A horse team never needs a battery jump start. No matter how cold it is, they always start. Everyone does.
In the winter, the cattle need fed every day. Christmas, New Year's, doesn't matter. We feed every day. There's no Sundays west of Omaha in this business.
It may look like there's a lot of snow here in the Colorado Rockies, but all of this is not nearly the amount of snow they need.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
These warmer, less snowy winters in Colorado echo through the canyons of Arizona, impacting more than 40 million people downstream.
There are natural cycles, but there's also kind of the humans contributing to the rise in temperatures in a time that wouldn't necessarily be happening otherwise.
The snow that does melt sets out on a 1,400-mile winding journey to the Colorado River Delta in Sonora, Mexico. And along the way, the drought has left this massive dry ring around Lake Mead. In the last 20 years, America's largest reservoir has lost some 4.5 trillion gallons of water.
And the rain doesn't come like it used to in June and July and throughout the summer.
Matt tells us this snowfall crisis has all kinds of ripple effects, like the price of hay going through the roof. So farmers and cities are already cutting back on the water they use.
We've been able to sort of hold off, I think, a real crisis. Current projections are showing for the lake to drop even further during 2022.
And if the trend continues, we could be looking at a mega drought in the making.
Hopefully it'll come back in 4 or 5 years and we'll start getting moisture like we used to.
For now, the Beltons are just moving forward.
Because I can't feed too much in one spot.
There may be no Sundays off west of Omaha, but more sunny days and less snow is already a reality on this mountain ranch.
Really well done piece there, Dave. So, you know, March and April, the peak months for snowpack, but we are below average for the year so far. Are the cattle ranchers that you've talked to and gotten a feel for hopeful or worried about the next few weeks?
Well, you never know what's going to happen in the future. There could be snowstorms that are coming in, but as you've been showing all day, some of that snow is going to go to Albuquerque and not as far north as Steamboat Springs, where those folks are up there. They're not even going to get any snow from this round of snowfall that's come down.
And yeah, what falls east of the divide doesn't necessarily funnel back into the Colorado River, and it eventually goes to the Gulf of Mexico and Atlantic Basin.
It's 2 different states almost, yeah.
Exactly. And now, are some of the cattle ranchers that you spoke to worried that in a few years, ranching may no longer be a sustainable way to make a living due to the changing weather?
Well, it kind of depends on how you do it, Chris. There are ways to keep on ranching in a way that you use less water and you don't trample the land so much the way that the cattle do right now. Actually, you can take a new technology and section off parts of your land and just put the cattle in one spot. And that is exactly what we're going to show you tomorrow. We're going to take you to a ranch that is not very far from the ranch we showed you today, where they're doing cattle ranching in a new way.
That's going to be really interesting. One last question for you, Dave. Would you say it's better to have an above-average snow year so it slowly can drain into the basin, or would you have an above-average precip year, say, in the summertime?
Well, it's better to have both, but look at this. You can see that we are slightly below average here. But think of the Colorado River. The Colorado River and the snowfall is your annual income, and the Lake Mead and Lake Powell are your savings accounts, and we're pulling from these savings accounts when you don't have as much annual income coming in.
All right, Dave Malkoff, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing more of the stories from the makings of a mega drought. We want to take you to the Colorado River, Lake Havasu City, Arizona right now. It is windy, but at least it's sunny and beautiful this spring.
Next on Weather Underground, a multi-day severe threat unfolding right now. We're tracking dangerous storms as we speak, with damaging wind and heavy rain continuing to push through the deep south. Those multiple rounds of storms will also ramp up the danger of rising water. We go in depth on where the flash flood threat is highest, stretching from the Gulf Coast all the way to the Ohio Valley.
There's also a big concern for severe weather tomorrow as another outbreak looms. So we're going to break down for you who could see strong tornadoes and why the danger won't end once the sun goes down. Plus, slick conditions lead to a frightening near miss caught on dash cam. Whoa, it is all next right here on Weather Underground. Thanks for being with us tonight here on Weather Underground. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson. Dr. Knapp with us as well. And once again, we're talking about the southeast in that threat zone for a potential severe outbreak. The worst of conditions, Mike, expected tomorrow.
Yeah, and here we go again. Another week, another outbreak. We're tracking storms tonight. Basically, it's kind of the pre-show, if you will, before the big event begins. They're going to get going here in the next few hours. Severe storms possible in Biloxi and then in places like Dallas, where it's 74 degrees for us right now, and some big rumblers even after you go to bed. So let's outline that threat for you here for the remainder of your evening. What happens for you overnight tonight? There will be a flood component to all this as well, with some heavier rain that comes down. Let me show you the area that we're concerned about right now, because we've got some storms that are already flaring here between Brownwood and Llano and Llano here over and near Killeen. Okay, so right here is I-35. Waco down toward Austin, right? Dallas sitting right up in here. Storms are getting going, and there's about an 80% chance that we get a watch out of this system. Large hail, damaging winds, tornadoes are all possible for us here. There's a look at what happens for us as we go through the next, couple of hours. This area here is really going to start to light up for us, we think, and then everything moves right through the Metroplex as we go through the evening. There's a lone storm here around Brady right now. That storm is not severe warned at the moment, but a lot of these storms will have an ample atmosphere to kick up and get going here. And a lot of these storms will fire along this stationary front as that low now starts to get a little bit more invigorated. A lot of moisture pulled in now from the Gulf of Mexico, and a decent amount of daytime heating that we've had today. So building energy through the day today as we're heating up the surface. That air is beginning to rise. It's nice and moist, gets up in the atmosphere, it cools, it condenses, it forms thunderstorm clouds, and then, we're off to the races. So this area in particular, I think right in here is the location to watch for severe storms, but they could extend even overnight over into, say, the mid-south. That could include a location like Little Rock or Memphis or even Tupelo. There's a look at our tour count today. It's tour count of 3 in the red areas. Waco and near Dallas over toward Tyler. Austin, we're not far off from it here, so just be ready for the possibility of tornadoes tonight. Not a high likelihood. I think we've got a greater likelihood tomorrow, but again, it's a nighttime threat, and a lot of us are sleeping. Have a way to be alerted if you're sleeping and a warning is issued for your location. All right, so next couple hours, watch this area begin to fire up with more storms. Plenty of storms here across the deep south as well. And then watch these storms just keep going. Here we are, 9 o'clock now. Killeen up toward Texarkana. It's dark. The storms have flared for you. And then everything just keeps going here. Front is lifting here, so all these storms are laden with moisture and heavy, heavy thunderstorms back down here across the hill country as well. Those could be huge hailers, possible rotation, possible tornadoes with those. But just look how wet we are. Tomorrow morning, you're headed out for work. Little Rock, Memphis, Nashville, just downpours coming for you here. And Dr. Knapp, as bad as it gets tonight, tomorrow could be even worse.
Yeah, and you might be thinking, well, some of that rain in the morning, maybe it prevents the atmosphere from destabilizing. Probably not, because we have such a potent system here in the southwest, and that is going to be strengthening and leading to the development of a strong surface low. Right now, that surface low is pretty broad and pretty weak there, deep South Texas, even into Mexico, but that low will be strengthening. We're going to detail that as time goes on. Moisture coming out of the Gulf already, and we've already been kind of setting the table all week with warmth and moisture that will really ramp up tomorrow. So this is the same low during the day tomorrow that originates much weaker over the Rio Grande Valley. This will be heading quickly northeastward and strengthening as it does so. The stronger that low gets, the more we advect in warm, moist air at the low levels, destabilize the atmosphere quickly, and there will be some daytime heating behind those morning storms, and so the atmosphere is going to get unstable really, really quickly. Also going to have some focusing mechanisms with the frontal boundaries to the east of the low, and as you go up from the surface with the south-southeast winds, then a few thousand feet up into the mid-levels, those winds turn southwesterly, and that provides the low-level wind shear, and the mid-level wind strength will add to the damaging wind threat. I mean, you go a few thousand feet up, those winds will be really, really strong, and some of that will get mixed on down. So we got a lot of focusing mechanisms. So, Alex, if we go through our SLIM acronym, I think we're going to be checking off those boxes pretty easily.
Yeah, kind of like your ingredient list for a recipe, right? And the Storm Prediction Center is warning that this could be another severe weather outbreak. We've got Torcon values as high as 7. That's in Jackson, Mississippi, all the way up to Nashville, Tennessee, and even a 5 in Metro Nashville, headed over to not Knoxville, around Chattanooga and into the Little Rock area, a Torcon of 3. Same for Atlanta. So again, those Torcon values in that medium to even high range. We're talking about the tornado threat in some of the same areas that were hit during last week's event. That outbreak spurned 48 tornadoes. Now, crews are still assessing the damage from last week's storm. Now we're talking about more storms. So when we talk about what we know, Dr. Nab, we do know that some of the same areas are going to be up against storms, but we also are going to be looking at some different areas. Threat of tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail, and once again, several long-track tornadoes possible, some of which could be strong. But again, when we talk about the similarities and the differences, we're actually going to add in some communities from last week, Dr. Nab.
We absolutely are, because it's so important to remember what happened last week and what a much bigger area is at risk this week. Again, here's the reports from last week. And you overlay the risk this week. Certainly, it goes farther north and or occupies a larger area. We'll get into the details of why that is. But here's last week's system that was heading from west to east. That is compared to what's going on now, and watch what the models do with this system. Again, middle upper level pattern in the white lines, colors are the low level spin, and you see by tomorrow morning, this system in the middle upper level is going to be headed this way, and watch these colors light up with a very rapid motion off to the northeast. That is going to bring a lot of people farther north into the mix, but that forward speed of a strengthening low is critical. Now, let me explain why. So here's this evening, and then let's go to tomorrow morning early. We still have a relatively broad area of low pressure trying to form in East Texas. Go to late morning tomorrow. It will be a little bit stronger, a little better defined of a low over Arkansas, but watch what happens by this time tomorrow. We've got a very strong, a strengthening low over southern Illinois if this model is anywhere near correct. That's important because you're also going to have some destabilization in the atmosphere early in the afternoon before this storminess gets going. That's what's going to fuel this. But it's going to be getting more unstable quickly during the afternoon tomorrow because this fast-moving and strengthening low, the stronger that low gets, the stronger the advection of warm, moist air at low levels becomes, so that increases the destabilization. At the same time, you're heating things up with the sunlight on the ground, but also that strengthening low, that makes the low-level jets and mid-level jets stronger, and that increases the wind shear. So there's nothing good about the timing here with regard to a fast-moving, strengthening low-pressure system. Mike, it's going to get more unstable a lot more quickly tomorrow than people might realize.
All right, so let's break that down a little bit for people here, folks. Dr. Nab, what you were talking about there. There are 4 different ingredients that we really look at when it comes to severe weather and severe weather that could produce tornadoes. How much wind shear is the atmosphere? How much lift? How much instability? How much moisture? We use the acronym SLIM to make it easy to remember. Now, wind shear tomorrow is pretty high here, all right? We've got the graph that goes all the way up, Dr. Nab. Lift is pretty high as well. Instability, we're calling it medium, and same with moisture here. Although I would make the argument, certainly with the proximity to the Gulf of Mexico, moisture is going to be pretty high here. But that instability, boy, if we could get some sunshine tomorrow, these storms could really take off.
Yeah, and I would say there is a little bit more moisture involved with this system as compared to last week. And again, it's the timing of it all. The moisture content of the atmosphere will be increasing during the day tomorrow, and it'll be focusing. Look at that. Look at how much the moisture just increases during the day while you're getting the heating of the day to the south of the morning storms. So moisture increases the instability. So that is certainly a big part of this. And watch how this plays out. This is the instability going on. This is early tomorrow morning, but look at how that really ramps up, and look how far north it gets. And part of this is going to be because of the daytime heating. The timing of the strengthening low, the daytime heating, and the increased moisture and low-level shear is all going to, sync together, and that's why it's going to get really unstable. And pretty early in the day, into the midday, you're going to be having those storms fire up in the warm sector with a lot of supercells because of the wind shear. So here we go. White lines there are the low level near the surface. The blue lines are more, maybe about 4,000 or 5,000 feet. And I want to show you how much more wind shear and instability is going farther north. Look at Tennessee. This is tomorrow afternoon. That low has gotten stronger. We've brought in more moisture and warmth during the day, and with that strengthening low, here's what the surface winds are doing. Here's what the winds a few thousand feet up are doing. There's going to be a lot of wind shear in the southeastern area, getting close to that warm front, getting close to that surface low. So get ready for some rotating storms up in Tennessee. This is not just going to be a Mississippi, Alabama kind of setup. This is going to be going a lot farther north, Alex.
Yeah, that's something that we've kind of mentioned here a few times. So let's talk about the why, as to why these areas farther north are going to have to be on such high alert.
Yes. This is important because, number one, you might be thinking, the headlines have been Mississippi, Alabama, and in Tennessee and Kentucky and Ohio. You might be thinking, okay, it's them again.
Yeah, you think it's the neighbors to the south. You consistently, when we talk about some of the same states over and over, and you think closer to the Gulf of Mexico, there's a lot of reasons why, understandably so, we would be thinking about better chances for those more southern communities. But the track of this is going to put those other spots in play.
Yeah, and the two things that we've talked about so far, the speed and intensification of that surface low and all the ingredients that are going to be in place, those are working together to bring things farther north and do it more quickly. So another thing I want to say to the folks, not just in Tennessee, Kentucky, but in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, is that because of this strengthening low, the stronger it gets during the day, the stronger that low-level and mid-level flow gets, we are going to have really fast-moving storms. So tomorrow is a day where you want to be off the roads when that tornado watch is issued. The storm motion is going to be like 50, 55 miles an hour. It's in some locations. And that's going to bring things to the north really quickly. So you might start off with a relatively calm morning in Tennessee, and then things will ramp up quickly in the afternoon. And because of the forward speed of this strengthening low, that's why we're going to get things not just into Tennessee, but into Kentucky, and I would say even up into Ohio. Because when you get this strong low tomorrow night, again, surface winds going this way, the low to mid-level winds coming from this way, a tremendous amount of wind shear in the atmosphere, and that wind shear can overcome maybe a little less instability farther to the north. So all of these things, but it really hinges on the strength of the overall flow that is taking a strengthening low from Texas to Indiana, all during the day and night tomorrow, Alex.
Yeah, so a lot of real estate needs to be on guard. And of course, we've got that high risk for a lot of areas. Torcon 7 out of 10, so a 70% chance of tornadoes. Memphis into Birmingham, as well as Nashville, Tennessee. So again, we're talking about many metro areas, many populated areas, as well as some of those other areas, the smaller towns that surround these areas. Plenty of spots in northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, parts of Tennessee will need to be on the lookout. You can see the Memphis area right around that boundary between the 5 and the 7. So definitely want you to be on guard. I think the farther south and east you live, the higher the likelihood. But really anybody around the Mississippi River area needs to be prepared for that possibility of strong storms and potential tornadoes as well. We look at the radar picture now. Tomorrow morning, you wake up to showers and thunderstorms out there. So it's going to be very active even as we start the day, continuing into the mid and late morning. Now you see more of that widely scattered shower and thunderstorm variety. As we get into the afternoon, some big time storms across the area. Again, these may be more hit or miss before that line slides through right around dinner time, and then threat goes down. So you can see it's going to be a very active day morning into the afternoon. Now, Birmingham, you've got that Torcon of 7. We head farther to the east and south of town. Torcons drop to 5 and 3. But again, they're not 0. So I need everybody around this part of Alabama, central Alabama, to be on guard tomorrow. We again wake up to scattered showers, some rumbles of thunder on the radar. So it could be a messy morning commute for you. Around mid-morning, again, still some showers and thunderstorms. That'll continue into the early afternoon. Now we begin to see more of those storms, especially as we get closer to 3, 4 o'clock. These are those strong storms that could bring us the gusty winds, the hail potential, as well as that threat for tornadoes. So plenty of areas to watch into tomorrow afternoon and evening around Birmingham. As we get towards the late evening, I think that line finally begins to head off towards the east and our threat goes down. But Mike, for a lot of these communities, it's a lot of the day that we're going to be watching for at least rain and thunderstorm activity.
Indeed, Alex, thank you. And still to come on Weather Underground.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
Ranchers say the lack of snow is leading to an economic meltdown in part 3 of our special series, Making of a Mega Drought.
We log at the top of the world, a mile high into the mountains. That's where some of the best logging is.
It's absolutely insane up here.
Careful, careful, careful.
There's lots of things that can go wrong. The mud just does not stop.
You can't stay on the road.
You just hope you make it.
It's a battle against Mother Nature. It's not for everyone.
Let the fun begin.
This Sunday, it's a new highway through hell that will have you on the floor. This time, the heroes need help when the battle comes to their front door.
This time, on Highway Through Hell.
That is crazy.
Raging waters.
The whole road is covered over.
And winter rains.
Brutal.
Threaten Jamie's yard.
That could devastate us.
A tough jackknife.
I've got to get this trailer around.
Tests Rick.
We cannot damage the fuel tanks.
And Brandon.
Oh, there goes the bumper.
And Al.
Ever watch Roy Rogers?
Goes fishing.
The Loch Ness Monster.
To stop a flood.
We're going to stop that cable.
An all-new Highway Through Hell this Sunday night at 8, 7 Central.
Well, the rain in New Orleans setting records. We were watching them yesterday, just getting absolutely soaked. They set a new daily rainfall record, more than 5.5 inches of rain. Also made it the second wettest March day on record for the Big Easy. Wasn't the only city either. We had Lake Charles also getting their second wettest March day. May, look at me, fast forwarding us. It kind of feels like May, though, given all the unsettled weather we've got. You know, we think May, we think storms, we think flooding, and unfortunately, flooding continues to be an issue along with the possibility of severe weather. Flash flood watches remain in effect across sections of Louisiana into Mississippi, as well as parts of Alabama. So the storms tomorrow will also be offering up some heavier rainfall totals that could cause us some trouble. So I mentioned that second wettest March day in Lake Charles. Almost 5 inches. This is so frustrating when you look at a number like this, right? If you're anything like me, I just like complete and even. So 4.99 makes me crazy. I would like to have just got that 1 extra hundredth of an inch, right, to make it an even 5. But alas, that 4.99 was most certainly enough. You don't want more, just enough to even it out, right? We look at the rainfall accumulation here over the past 7 days, and Louisiana sticks out very clearly for the huge accumulations. Plenty of areas in the orange, the red coloring, and that's indicative of where we've seen 5+ inches. So there are plenty of communities in these areas that saw a ½ foot or more of rainfall just within the last week. We look at the middle part of the week. Our moisture remains in place from that first storm, and now our second storm system coming in to offer up the severe weather. And of course, in addition to all the severe threats we talk about, we've got to watch for these storms offering up the threat for more heavy rain. So today, rain and thunderstorms focused across eastern Louisiana, southern Alabama, and Mississippi. Tomorrow, maybe southern Alabama, extreme western parts of the Florida Panhandle get a bit of a break, more in the way of scattered rain, but still, Louisiana, southern Mississippi will continue to get drenched. And then on Friday, we are looking at more in the way of rain across sections of Georgia. And when we talk about water, Dr. Knabb, we know that flooding can be just as dangerous as a tornado, even though a lot of people don't think of it that way.
Yeah, and Alex, unfortunately, on average, we lose about 100 people a year due to flooding in this country, and it happens in the spring and the summer primarily, partially due to hurricane season. Now, what we are showing here are the previous 5 years, 2016 through 2020, the flood fatalities in the United States per month. And certainly 2017 jumps out with Harvey in Texas and Maria in Puerto Rico, large numbers of fatalities due to the flooding. And we've also had Florence in 2018, Matthew in 2016, big time flood events that took a lot of lives in places like North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. But what's going on with these really deadly months here in the spring? Well, what is going on here? June of 2016 was a really bad month, and it had nothing to do with landfalling tropical systems, and we lost 24 people in West Virginia flooding in June 23rd of 2016. It was an awful event, and there was not a tropical system anywhere nearby, but they had nearly a foot of rain in much of the mountainous state there. And the other thing that happened in June of 2016 was in the Fort Hood, Texas area. This is in the hill country north of Austin, and this was about 3 weeks prior. So June of 2016 with those multiple events was pretty bad. But also, let's look at 2019. On our graphic, 2019 looks like we're losing people every month, because May we had a lot, but it really lasted February through July. It was that above average rainfall with the river flooding that started with the snow melt and just lost a lot of people that way. And also April of 2016 in Houston and in Palestine, Texas, we lost a number of people in that tax day flood in Houston, Mike and Alex. So it doesn't take a hurricane to cause deadly floods, and we're in the heart of the spring severe and flood season.
Indeed we are, Dr. Knabb. Thank you. And still to come on Weather Underground, the threat of strong tornadoes and severe thunderstorm outbreak increasing for tomorrow. So we're going to time out when you'll see the worst of that weather. And of course, watching the possibility of some storms flaring up tonight. Storms getting going in Texas right now. New severe thunderstorm warning just outside of San Antonio.
Well, the fog looks a lot different when you get to see it from above, right? This is what it looked like this morning over New York City from the Empire State Building. So you are truly above it.
That's really neat stuff there. Fog rolling over the Big Apple. Then it cleared out and made way for a beautiful day. You see the sun coming up, and that fog just dissipates. And the next thing you know, you're just enjoying the life in the city, right? But the great view, right? The things that you can see from above, right?
Yeah, always cool. I always love a foggy morning when you fly and you're like up, and then all of a sudden it's like sunny. You're like, oh. Wow,
there's
that
the
was
sun,
convenient.
just like that, yeah.
Totally. Well, welcome back into Weather Underground on this Wednesday. I'm Alex Wilson. He's Mike Bettis. We also have Dr. Nav in the house
We're going to
tonight.
talk severe weather, and a lot of it here, starting tonight, lasting through the day tomorrow. And, of course, don't forget, you can stay with the Weather Channel 24/7 on Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and your smart TV. For you existing cable and satellite subscribers, you can download the app now. You can get access to the latest alerts, forecasts, local radar, and live coverage on the app on your TV, so check it out. By the way, I want to show you some of the wet roads in Texas, and check this out. Whoa, that was seriously close, right? Very close call for their sheriff's deputy. He's got his back to the truck. Dash cam video shows just how close he came from being pinned right against that vehicle. Wow. When roads are slippery like that, they can be so dangerous. They don't need to be icy. Sometimes they just need to be wet. All right, so let's show you what's going on right now. We've actually got a pretty solid chance that we may see a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch issued this evening in this area that does include up around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but will include Waco and Killeen and Mineola. Large hail, damaging winds, a possible tornado could form for us in here. Pretty good storm around Brownwood here this evening. Not a lot happening in Fort Worth and Dallas currently, but this area is really going to light up as we go through the next couple of hours here. One severe thunderstorm warning. This storm's now gone warned here with a big hail core here in San Saba here. Richland Springs, that's the city that we're worried about here. Relatively unpopulated areas, but still, if you're in Richland Springs, inside is where you need to be right now. 4:45, the expiration on that severe thunderstorm warning. Here's the big picture. There's a lot of moisture to tap into here. This is the complex pattern that we're following. We've got the low that sits here with the trailing dry line. Then we've got this focusing front right here where a lot of storms will begin to form, but with a lot of moisture is then being forced up, drawn in from the Gulf of Mexico into that front. And so as the sun heats up the surface today, you're now going to start to see more rising air, the instability just increasing here, and this is why these storms are really going to flare, we think, especially close to that front. As we go through the evening, through the overnight, high likelihood of seeing the storms across the Metroplex, back down toward maybe Junction, eventually up toward Little Rock and Memphis. Torque count of 3 for us this evening and overnight. Torque count of 2 as you head over towards, say, the Mid-South here. But watch the future radar, how things really start to explode through the evening. Big thunderstorms here, especially down around Killeen or so. Then watch all these storms fire here with strong flow out of the Gulf of Mexico. Big supercells 1 o'clock in the morning here in the Texas Hill Country. Then everything, just a huge coverage here tomorrow morning. Alex, a lot of folks when they head out for work tomorrow or for school, this is going to be a real threat.
Yeah, and then we've got the threat for severe weather continuing throughout your Thursday. Mississippi up to Kentucky. We're looking at Jackson. We're looking at Scottsville right now. These are both communities getting in on the sunshine now, but of course waking up, as Mike just showed you, to storms tomorrow morning and then continuing that storm threat throughout the day. So we look at the severe weather tomorrow and the Torcon values as high as a 7 out of 10 from parts of Mississippi, Jackson, Tupelo, northern Alabama, Birmingham up to Huntsville, Nashville, Tennessee, even Memphis. I think you're right on the cusp there of that 7. And what would a Torcon of 7 tell me? Well, of course, a 70% chance of tornado, but that numerous tornadoes are possible. There's an increased chance of strong tornadoes. Those would be the ones that are EF2 or greater. Some could be long track, and you basically just need to be ready to take cover. Have that safe spot already picked out, know where you would go if the warning was issued, and have a way to get those warnings. Super critical. So as Mike showed us, tomorrow morning we're going to wake up to some scattered rain showers and thunderstorms across sections of the south. By the time we get into the early afternoon, we're beginning to see things really blossom across parts of Alabama, of Mississippi, into Louisiana. There at 4 o'clock, you can see some of those large, possibly very strong storms rolling through the region, and we'll continue to watch parts of Tennessee, Kentucky as we head into the mid-evening, and then through the overnight. Now we watch places like Atlanta. Could you be looking at some storms into the early morning hours of Friday? Most certainly. So, Mike, a lot of places throughout the overnight need to be on guard.
All right, Alex, thank you. Coming up on Weather Underground, with strong tornadoes possible tomorrow, we break down why it's critical to have a safe shelter when a violent storm threatens. Plus, cattle ranchers in northern Colorado now taking a very different approach when it comes to dealing with extreme droughts. We'll explain when we come back on Weather Underground.
Yeah, it's been a pretty miserable day across parts of the Southwest. This is Albuquerque, New Mexico, where we had high winds, snow in the Albuquerque area. Now, that wind so strong, it actually was creating 3-foot snow drifts. Things were getting wild across the Southwest. You know, Southwest areas, Colorado, New Mexico have seen snow, and it's not abnormal to get snow during the month of March or even April in these areas. But Denver, you're actually at your third snowiest March on record. When we go back to 1882 and look at each and every month of March, this one, the third snowiest with just about 32 inches of snow. You see, we're not too far off the number 2 spot. So watching that, we still have some snow around the Denver area, more towards Colorado Springs at this point, down towards the Colorado-New Mexico state line, back into western parts of the state of Colorado, even a little bit of Idaho, or rather Utah, getting in on some of that snow. We take you into parts of Texas where we've got a little snow mixing in Amarillo. Head over into New Mexico. Tucumcari, you are getting in on some snow, and that continues over towards the Albuquerque area. Really at this point more in the way of that snowfall for areas off to your south and east. Into even parts of Arizona. We've been watching for some snow showers, but obviously much less in the farther west you go. But tomorrow, again, a little bit of northern Arizona, a little bit of northern New Mexico, but more for Utah and Colorado in terms of the snow showers. A place like Pueblo, though, actually seeing some sunshine with highs around 58, Mike.
All right, Alex, thank you. Well, water availability going from bad to worse for states that rely on the drought-stricken Colorado River. In Utah, the drought's so bad the state of emergency has been declared there. Now, this week, the Weather Channel and our climate unit, Pattern, are examining the making of a mega drought. Chief Environmental Correspondent Dave Malkoff joining us now. Dave.
Hey, Mike, it's good to see you. Today, we take you to northern Colorado. The place Alex was just showing us is not snowing right now, where warmer days and less snow are making it harder for ranchers to make a living.
In rural northern Colorado, Matt and Christy Belton ranch the old-fashioned way.
I get all my exercise doing this.
A horse team never needs a battery jump start. No matter how cold it is, they always start. Everyone does.
In the winter, the cattle need fed every day. Christmas, New Year's, doesn't matter. We feed every day. There's no Sundays west Omaha in this business.
It may look like there's a lot of snow here in the Colorado Rockies, but all of this is not nearly the amount of snow they need.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
These warmer, less snowy winters in Colorado echo through the canyons of Arizona, impacting more than 40 million people downstream.
There are natural cycles, but there's also kind of the humans contributing to the rise in temperatures in a time that wouldn't necessarily be happening otherwise.
The snow that does melt sets out on a 1,400-mile winding journey to the Colorado River Delta in Sonora, Mexico. And along the way, the drought has left this massive dry ring around Lake Mead. In the last 20 years, America's largest reservoir has lost some 4.5 trillion gallons of water.
And the rain doesn't come like it used to in June and July and throughout the summer.
Matt tells us this snowfall crisis has all kinds of ripple effects, like the price of hay going through the roof. So farmers and cities are already cutting back on the water they use.
We've been able to sort of hold off, I think, a real crisis. Current projections are showing for the lake to drop even further during 2022.
And if the trend continues, we could be looking at a mega drought in the making.
Hopefully it'll come back in 4 or 5 years and we'll start getting moisture like we used to.
For now, the Beltons are just moving forward.
Because I can't feed too much in one spot.
There may be no Sundays off west of Omaha, but more sunny days and less snow is already a reality on this mountain ranch.
So, Dave, here we are again. Snowpack below average for the year. Are rangers hopeful or are they worried?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. You may have some snowfall that is lacking right now, but if you look at this chart here, you can see we are just below average. So, I mean, anything can happen in the next 5 or 10 years. But if you look at the averages here, it does look like we are far below what we need to be in the Colorado Rockies, Mike.
All right. Our Dave Malkoff with the Mega Drought Report this evening. Dave, thank you. Alex?
All right, we got much more coming up on Weather Underground, including more on our top story. A significant concern for the South tomorrow as we watch for a potential severe weather outbreak. And like last week, that includes the possibility that we could be looking at some strong tornadoes. And of course, look right now at a tornado warning in effect across parts of Texas. This is well to the south and west of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Likely also seeing some large hail out of this storm, but it's San Saba County under that tornado warning as this storm continues to move towards the east-northeast. We're watching at radar indicated storm again, also bringing some large hail. Well, coming up at 8 p.m., it's Highway Through Hell. Tonight, tense moments during the rescue of two 40-ton excavators buried in a bog.
It's just equipment and machinery graveyard around here.
Al Quiring's facing the recovery of a lifetime. Two excavators buried deep in a peat bog. To hitch the 70,000-pound excavator to the dozers, Al's had a heavy-duty piece of rigging custom-made for this job.
Put the triple hook on her.
A 110-pound piece of solid steel called the triple hook.
It's the new thing that I dreamt up one night.
Two dozers rigged to Al's triple hook and a third machine pulling on the undercarriage will try and strong-arm the excavator out of the bog.
Like three big fat elephants, we're going to lean into it and rip that out of there. Wind her up. Give her some throttle. Use the winch. Come on, pull on her. Slow.
When it gets hung up on the log platform.
There's logs underneath.
Right in the way.
That is Highway Through Hell, and it is coming up after Weather Underground.
All right, let's show you what's going on here across the Midwest because we still have some showers that we're contending with here. A little bit of wind today, too. It's not been the most comfortable of days. Thin little line of showers here approaching Aurora and Chicago this evening. Some light rain around the Twin Cities. Look at the snow as you go up into northern Wisconsin. That's not going to be much, though. The rain up around Escanaba, Michigan here, and then through the UP here. For most of us, it becomes a wind and rain event that starts to die down. But look at the gusts in Chicago. Still at 36 right now, gusting about 40 miles an hour in Detroit, as well as Indianapolis. Indianapolis. So a pretty raw March day for you. Now, the wind's still there this evening. They will start to back down as we go through the rest of the evening tonight, but still not a comfortable evening for sure. Tomorrow will be a lot better for you as far as the winds are concerned here. And tomorrow morning, the winds should be pretty negligible in places like Chicago, the Twin Cities, or back toward maybe a Des Moines. We're looking for the showers to wrap up sometime between 7 and 8 o'clock this evening. Drier conditions overnight tonight with temperatures in the low 50s. Tomorrow, probably only about 51 or so for a high tomorrow, with some more showers rolling in now from the south. This is that same complex that'll bring the storms to the south. They're now starting to push their way toward the Ohio Valley. St. Louis to Indianapolis towards Cincinnati. Watch for the thunderstorms here. Some of those could even be severe. 65 degrees for us in Cincinnati tomorrow. Detroit looking for some evening rain for you at about 64 degrees. Kansas City will probably be on the back end of it all. Not likely to have severe weather, but you could still get hit with a little bit of rain. Minneapolis and Des Moines likely to be dry days for us here. Alex?
All right, well, we've got a threat of severe weather here as we head into Thursday. We've been talking about it throughout the show. Of course, torcons of 7 tomorrow, and that includes into the afternoon hours. Now, this is also the time where you need to designate or think about where is that safe spot if a tornado was to strike your home. Meteorologist Mark Elliott shows us the safest place to shelter from a storm.
When you're under a tornado warning or you hear a tornado siren, and especially if you can see that tornado, now is not the time to grab that smartphone and start filming. Instead, it's time to get inside and seek shelter. You run inside to seek shelter from the storm and come up to your bedroom, which normally is pretty safe, until, of course, a tree crashes through your roof. Coming down to a lower level, great idea. Trying to see where the storm is outside those windows, bad idea. It was a good idea to leave the windows, but this exterior wall doesn't help you as much as you might think. No, tree limbs or 2x4s, they're like toothpicks when winds get as fierce as in these storms. Yes, your garage is on ground level and has 4 sides. No, it isn't going to protect you the way you want it to. So this is where you do want to be. Not only a low level, but the lowest level you've got. And you want to put as many walls between you and the storm as possible. And then you stay here until it's safe. Because this room could be the one thing that saves your life.
Well, folks, coming up here on Weather Underground, concern now increasing for the south tomorrow as a severe outbreak looms. See who's at risk for strong tornadoes and when that threat continues after you go to bed. There's a look at the radar this evening. A few places that are seeing the storms already begin to pop. Not to mention, we've got some heavy rain also ramping up tomorrow with a flood danger. But San Saba, there's a look at Texas tonight. Radar indicated tornado headed toward Goldthwaite. Big core of hail with that as well. A little bit of rotation on that. So please take shelter right now in Goldthwaite. Then notice this area in red. This is where we have a tornado watch until 10 o'clock tonight. Includes Killeen, Waco, Corsicana, and south side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Is mealtime a struggle? Storms now as damaging wind and heavy rain continues to push through the deep south. And those multiple rounds of storms will also ramp up the danger of rising water. We'll go in depth on where the flash flood threat is highest, stretching from the Gulf Coast to the Ohio Valley.
There is also big concern tomorrow as a severe outbreak looms. We're going to run down for you who could see strong tornadoes and why the danger won't end once the sun goes down. Plus, slick roads lead to a frightening near miss caught on dash cam. It's all next on Weather Underground. Thank you for being with us tonight here on Weather Underground. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson. Dr. Nab with us as well tonight. And once again, we're talking about the southeast in the threat zone for a potential severe weather outbreak.
Yeah, this one could be pretty big. It could, encompass many states, starting in Texas right now. But there's Biloxi. We're going to be in the threat zone here in Mississippi. We are going to be in Texas as well. And a lot of states from the Gulf Coast all the way to the Ohio Valley will be at risk. So let's run down what's happening for us currently, because there are some new developments here in the last few minutes here, including new tornado watches and severe thunderstorm watches that have been issued. There's a look at the tornado watch highlighted in red here. Includes Junction, Texas, Killeen, Waco, Corsicana, south side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex as well. And then there is a severe thunderstorm watch highlighted in yellow. That does include Dallas and Fort Worth, Sherman over toward Mount Pleasant, I-20, I-35, I-30, all highways that could be affected by these storms this evening. And not to mention millions of people in the threat zone. There are storms now starting to flare up. You can see them popping here between Waco and Dallas. Big renegade storm all by itself. At her coming past Bradley tonight, San Saba County is under a tornado warning. That's until 5:15. Radar indicating a tornado. Big hail core, too. You see the white and the purple in there, indicating large hail coming down with this. And Goldthwait, we are next in line to be hit. Please get to your safe spot as quickly as you can with a possible tornado-producing storm here. Let's time it out for you. 5:04. You got 4 minutes before it's on top of you here. Toward Caradan here, likely around 5:28 tonight, then eventually over toward Hamilton. You're going to have a little bit of time before the storm gets to you. Here's the bigger picture and the setup of what's happening. We've got this low that's now starting to develop. It's not all that strong right now, but it strengthens through the night tonight. The front, this stationary front right in here is the focusing mechanism for the moisture that's pulling out of the Gulf of Mexico. That's kind of a backstop for it. So you'll see a lot of storms that flare along that stationary front. And that's where we have our watches. And so the Storm Prediction Center out of Norman thinking the same thing. As the moisture surge northbound here, the front lifts, the low moves through, the instability increases with daytime heating that we've had from the sun today. Things are in place now for storms to take off over the next few hours and maybe last right through the night. So this area here, highlighted especially in the dark red, most likely to have severe weather, but it could extend overnight tonight all the way over to Little Rock, maybe up toward Memphis as well. The torque count is a 3, so not high likelihoods of tornadoes, but it's still a possibility here. A torque count of 3 around Waco, near Dallas, and near Tyler, extending to a 2 overnight tonight across the Mid-South. Now, here's what's interesting. Watch the high-resolution future radar modeling here. Watch these storms just really begin to explode here. This area gets very, very active over the next couple of hours. The Red River Valley, right over into, say, the Arklatex, and eventually over to, say, Memphis, really gets hit hard here. Boy, these storms, huge cluster here that meets up with this rain that's lifting north as well. And then watch these big storms, 1 o'clock in the morning through the Texas Hill Country, really get going here. Those discrete supercells could produce tornadoes, but heavy downpours as well. A lot of flooding is possible for us around Little Rock and Memphis and up toward Nashville. Tomorrow morning's commute, really, really tough. Look at the heavy rain that we've got here in Middle Tennessee. And then the front now sliding through. Dallas, you're getting a little bit better around 9 o'clock, but another slug of storms coming through maybe Tulsa, then down toward Texarkana. So really rough weather for us this evening and overnight, Dr. Knapp, but tomorrow likely to be the big show.
Yeah, what you are showing is really just the beginning of what this overall system is going to do. And it's because our main energy in the middle and upper levels is still out here in the southwest, but that will be making its way eastward and then northeastward. And that surface low that's in southwest Texas, in the dry lines connected to a broader low that even goes down into northern Mexico. That is the beginning of the strengthening low that will be moving rapidly northeastward as it rapidly strengthens. So this is just a snapshot in time for tomorrow, but this low will be on the move tomorrow during the day and tomorrow night, going all the way up into the Great Lakes region by tomorrow night. So as it moves northward tomorrow, that will send the warm, moist air out of the Gulf of Mexico northward behind our northward surging cold front, and you'll get some daytime heating. So we will really build a lot of energy for instability, and those frontal systems will provide the lifting mechanisms. And there's going to be so much Gulf moisture in those south to southeasterly winds, and that's the lower part of what will produce the wind shear, because as you go just a few thousand feet up in the atmosphere, things will be turning out of the southwest, and that will produce the environment that could produce supercells. And it's going to also be supported by strong mid-level winds that will increase the wind threat. So we have all hazards on the table. Could be numerous long-track, strong tornadoes, could be large hail up to 1 inch or 2. And with all of that energy in the atmosphere, a lot of wind damage as well, Alex. It's going to be a long day and night tomorrow.
Absolutely, and the Storm Prediction Center is warning that this could be another severe weather outbreak. We have Torcon values as high as 7 from Jackson and Tupelo, Mississippi, Memphis and Nashville, Tennessee, into the northern parts of the state of Alabama, even extreme northwest Georgia. So looking like another dangerous day. You can see plenty of areas in that Torcon of 5 from southern parts of Kentucky into Arkansas, all the way into Georgia. And that tornado threat is in many of the same areas that were hit hard during last week's outbreak. You remember this tornado in Silas, Alabama. Now, that event spurred about 48 tornadoes. Crews are still assessing the damage with more storms to come tomorrow. Let's get you caught up on what we know in regards to this severe weather outbreak we are expecting. Severe thunderstorms and tornadoes. So hail, damaging winds also likely out of storms. And in terms of the tornado danger, we think there is the chance again for several strong and long track tornadoes as a possibility. But there are a couple things that make this one a little bit different than what we had last week. Dr. Nab here to break it down. First off, Dr. Nab, we think the speed of these storms is going to be significantly higher than last week.
Yes, because of the forward speed of the overall low pressure system and it taking a track that's different than last week. So again, last week's storm system in the middle upper levels, this is what we were dealing with a week ago tonight with that west to east moving system. Contrast that with what we've got tonight with our middle upper level low over the southwest and a surface low that right now is down in the Rio Grande area. And watch what happens in middle upper levels with the white lines, and then the colors are the low level spin here. And look at the blow up of the low level spin as this relatively short wave compared to last week moves quickly northeastward. So when things move quickly in the big picture, they're going to move more quickly at a smaller scale. So watch what happens during the day tomorrow. A relatively broad area of low pressure over East Texas early morning, but then it quickly moves northeastward to Arkansas by late morning, and it's rapidly intensifying. And the intensification of that low as it moves northeastward has a lot of ramifications that make it different than last week. One of them is the stronger that low gets, the stronger the low-level jet and even the mid-level winds become, and that makes for faster storm motion. Our individual supercells could be moving at 50 miles per hour or faster, so if you get a warning, you have to take shelter immediately. And that faster low-level flow with the strengthening low will also mean a lot more moisture, a lot more instability, and low-level wind shear, Mike. So a strengthening low-pressure system during the day tomorrow just ramps up the ingredients tomorrow really quickly.
All right, Dr. Nab, let's talk about some of those ingredients that you were just mentioning there. We call it SLIM here at the Weather Channel. Shear, lift, instability, and moisture. Four real crucial things to get severe weather and tornadoes to form. High amounts of shear and lift tomorrow. We've got medium amounts of instability, but we've got medium to high amounts of moisture. So a lot of things are checking the boxes here, Dr. Nab. And I feel like we've talked about this many times, especially if you have high amounts of low-level wind shear, you can really overcome any other deficiencies you might be lacking here.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there aren't going to be too many deficiencies tomorrow. So again, that strengthening low tomorrow is going to make all those ingredients ramp up. It increases the low-level wind shear. It increases the southerly flow with the warm, moist air. Now, I would say, and you saw in that graphic, that moisture is going to be pretty high. I think there's going to be more available moisture over a larger area than last week. And the increase in moisture will really ramp up during the day tomorrow while you're getting daytime heating. So that's why we're going to destabilize so quickly tomorrow. And look how far north that juicy air gets. And as the frontal systems come in, that focuses the moisture even more. So you can't have a lot of instability without a lot of moisture. And so moisture is a big key here. But let's take a look at the low-level wind shear and the overall instability. As that low strengthens, again, the stronger that low gets, the stronger these low-level winds become, and therefore the stronger the low-level to mid-level wind shear gets. And again, the white lines are coming at the surface. The blue lines are more like at 3,000 to 5,000 feet. And that kind of instability and wind shear is going to make it up into places like Tennessee. I mean, you get close to that low and that warm front, that wind shear is going to really be nasty up into Tennessee as we get through the day, not just Mississippi and Alabama. Look at how these lines are crossing there, those fast-moving dashed lines. So that set of ingredients ingredients is not good. And also, as we get to late morning, we get a little bit of an opportunity to get a break in the storms. That's not good in Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Alex, because that allows the daytime heating to ramp up while we are increasing the moisture and the low-level wind shear with that strengthening low. It's all really a dangerous setup that will escalate quickly during the day tomorrow.
And something else that we've mentioned briefly, but want to break into this a little bit more, deep dive into this a little more. There are areas that are farther north than last week's severe danger. I think spots where we always think it's going to be a southern threat, but parts of the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley looking in play this go-around.
Yeah, and for legitimate reasons, there's been a lot of talk this week about here we go again in Mississippi and Alabama. And if you look at last week's event where the tornado reports occurred, they occur in some of the area that's got the high risk of severe weather of all kinds, including tornadoes. But that risk extends farther north into areas that were not affected by the severe weather last week, again, because of the track and intensity of our system. Tennessee, Kentucky, even into southern Indiana and Ohio will be affected. So let's pick up the story with the low pressure intensifying quickly as it moves northeastward, and watch the instability and the wind shear as we go past sunset tomorrow night. That low continues to strengthen as it goes up in Indiana and Illinois. There's, again, the white lines this way, the blue lines that way, over the lowest few thousand feet of the atmosphere, a lot of wind shear, and that warm front blasting northward to bring that warm, unstable air pretty far north as we go through tomorrow evening and tomorrow night. And again, that front will be coming through the southeast, so Atlanta, this could turn out differently than the last time. We're not going to have that wedge in place. Maybe we don't use up all that instability quite as much as last time. But again, the timing of this is during the midday tomorrow. It will ramp up quickly, and then we'll have maybe kind of a linear system moving east, and then we bring it into the Ohio Valley. And even Friday, Alex, is not going to be a complete picnic in the southeast either.
Absolutely. We've got to watch a lot of areas with torcons of 7 out of 10 in Memphis, in Birmingham, in Nashville. You know, we start off busy, and the afternoon looks to bring a higher threat for severe weather. So let's time it down for you, or time it out for you, let you know how this is all going to go down, so to speak. We look at the Memphis area, and Memphis points to the east. That's where torcon values increase to a 7. We've got a 5 west of town. So tomorrow morning, you'll probably wake up, get on the roads, and there will be scattered showers and thunderstorms out there already. You can see plenty of heavy rain possible into the 5, 6, 7 a.m. time frame. Then we get a little bit of a break. But as we head into the early and mid-afternoon, you can see some of those strong thunderstorms firing up here across northern sections of Mississippi, getting into Tennessee as well. That continues as we head into the dinner time hours. I think beyond 6 o'clock, things will begin to quiet down around the Memphis area. Now, Birmingham, Alabama, that's a spot where you're also dealing with that 7 out of 10 on the torcon. The farther east you go, the torcon values begin to back off. So a 5 out of 10 for Sylacauga, portions of the I-20 corridor. This is also an area where tomorrow morning you're going to wake up, you're going to have showers, thunderstorms out there. Tomorrow morning's drive into work may be soggy. Get a little bit of a break as we head into the early afternoon, or I should say breaks between storms. You notice a little bit more in the way of a scattered nature, so that's going to allow those thunderstorms to move through, take advantage of that moisture, that instability, and those showers and storms continue into the evening hours. So I think once we're beyond, say, 10 o'clock local time, things should begin to quiet down around Birmingham. But in Middle Tennessee, torcon values also around a 7 north of Nashville. That's where you've got the 5 out of 10. That continues into the state of Kentucky. Tomorrow morning, again, starting off the day with some moderate to heavy downpours. I think that's the most likely thing we see. Getting, again, some breaks as we head into the late morning. By the mid and late afternoon, you can see those thunderstorms moving through the area. And you notice the shape, kind of like a kidney bean shape looking to some of these. Hail, gusty winds, and possible tornadoes with these storms that continue into the mid-evening hours. I think once we get beyond that point, Mike, places like Nashville will quiet down. But again, Jackson, Mississippi in play tomorrow.
Alex, thank you. And still to come on Weather Underground.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
Why ranchers say the lack of snow is leading to an economic meltdown in part 3 of our special series, Making of a Mega Drought.
Tide Pods.
It was just living in the moment of disbelief.
We really were caught off guard.
We couldn't leave. We were stuck there.
There was going to be nothing we could do except try to make it through safely.
That is the most scared that I have felt in my life. Oh my God! It's surreal. Holy!
All right, this Sunday, we've got a brand new episode. It's Heavy Rescue. It airs at 9 o'clock. It leads to a web of danger and, of course, metal.
He definitely hit hard. This time on Heavy Rescue 401.
I don't want to stick my head in there. That's where the chain is.
A pair of tangled trucks.
You still going?
Ties up Chatham. An icy night.
A very dangerous part right now.
Put Sonny in the firing line.
Everything going wrong.
Across the damn highway.
And Gary unveils.
Let's see what we can do.
His newest weapon.
All that. Whoa.
All new Heavy Rescue this Sunday night at 9, 8 Central.
Well, the rain in the New Orleans area setting records. They saw a new daily rainfall record, more than 5.5 inches coming down yesterday. We were covering it during the show, man. They were getting drenched. Yesterday, by the way, also the second wettest March day on record for the Big Easy. Not just New Orleans, though. Lake Charles also getting its second wettest March day on record. Flood alerts remain in effect. You can see all the flash flood watches that continue across parts of Louisiana into southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, as well as extreme western parts of the Florida Panhandle. So let's talk a little bit more about rain that we could see and, of course, how much already came down. I mentioned the over 5.5 inches that we had there in the New Orleans area. Lake Charles coming in just under 5 inches, 4.99 inches. If you're like me and you like things complete, it drives you nuts. But that was the second wettest March day on record, so it was enough to get them to the number 2 spot. We look at how much rain has come down over the last week, and you can see it is parts of southern Louisiana that have been the haves in terms of the big rainfall, right? The haves and the have-nots. The have-nots there into Texas, where they've seen nothing over the last week. Meanwhile, portions of Louisiana have seen over 5 inches, some spots in that 8 to 12-inch range. That's where you see that red shading. Today, we've got more scattered showers and thunderstorms, so we're just adding more rainfall on top of what we've already had. Tomorrow, more wet weather from, say, parts of eastern Louisiana up through Mississippi and Alabama. I think Florida gets a little bit of a break tomorrow, but by Friday, you can see western Florida once again in that zone of some steadier rain showers. So how much rain still yet to come? Well, I think so. In this case, the highest totals will actually be focused well off to the north and east of the areas that got drenched yesterday. 2 to 3 inches there across parts of northern Alabama into Tennessee. But you notice Mobile over to Biloxi, southern Louisiana or southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. You guys could see those 1 to 2 inch totals. I think we keep it around an inch or less for a place like New Orleans. But again, we're just adding rain into these already drenched areas. And we look at the possibility of flash flooding tomorrow into early Friday. Mike, it is going to be those areas where we see the higher totals, those 2 to 3 inches, northern Alabama, parts of Tennessee.
All right, Alex, thank you. Well, spring brings more threats of severe weather, so we need to be ready. And driving in rain can be especially stressful, and definitely at night. Jim Cantori tells us why it's important to have the right wiper blades.
You may not think of them much, but boy, do you depend on them often. Wiper blades, essential to driving safely in the harshest weather out there. When roads are wet, accidents occur more frequently. On average, over 500,000 accidents a year. While slippery roads are hazardous, reduced visibility from poor wiper blades also plays a role. And it isn't just rain. Snow can produce the same problem. Falling snow can reduce visibility to a quarter mile or less. It's important to use beam wiper blades to help reduce snow and ice buildup, providing superior performance in all weather conditions, including thunderstorms, when you'll need all your focus on driving safely. Hundreds of large raindrops, 3 millimeters in size, are hitting your windshield every few seconds. Wipers need to clear away the water because any streaking or remaining droplets reflect light, especially those from oncoming cars. This glare beams back into your eyes, blinding you to potential dangers like potholes, wildlife, and even other cars. So do yourself a favor. Make sure you have properly working wiper blades and replace them as manufacturers recommend. A clean and clear windshield helps you arrive safely to your destination and allows you to see what matters most.
And still ahead on Weather Underground, the threat of strong tornadoes and severe thunderstorms increasing tomorrow. So we're going to time out for you when you'll see the worst of the weather. Could it look a lot like that? Plus, an avalanche of mud and slush rushes down the face of Japan's tallest mountain, threatening neighborhoods. A sight to behold. It's all caught on camera. You're going to see it when we come back. And following the radar for you this evening in some spots where you have a few showers out there, including Philly up toward New York. Maybe a good night to stay inside. Well, cameras were rolling when a massive mudslide rolls down Mount Fuji in Japan. Check this out. How wild is it? Now, this is about 5,000 feet up. All that mud and water going down, picking up speed, picking up volume as well. That is just an incredible view, Alex.
Yeah, now there's an erosion control facility in place to keep all that sludge from actually getting into any homes. These kind of slushy avalanches happen in the spring when snow gets saturated with water. It's beginning to warm up, kind of melt. You get the rain, and then, of course, Mike mixes with all that mud, and you get all of that sliding downhill.
I've never heard of anything like mudslide control, erosion control. They literally have channels. Did you see that? They have these channels where it goes. That's incredible.
That's really fascinating. Again, keeping it out of the homes, so they figured out a way to get it where they want it and keep it away from the areas that they don't. Very cool.
Fantastic.
Well, we welcome you back into Weather Underground on this Wednesday. I'm Alex Wilson. He's Mike Bettis. We've got Dr. Nab with us as well. And Mike, another week, another significant threat of severe weather.
I think the next 24 plus hours are going to be pretty violent across the South and the Midwest. We want you to stay here with the Weather Channel 24/7. You can do it, by the way, on your Amazon Fire TV, your Roku, your smart TV too. Existing cable and satellite subscribers can download the app, and you can get access to the alerts, forecast, local radar, and live coverage as well. Very, very important over the next couple of days here. We know that in Texas, we've had some wet roads there, and it contributed to a really close call. Whoa, literally missing that sheriff's deputy by just a couple feet. He's got his back turned. He's going toward this vehicle that's crashed, and here comes that semi. Roads can be slick, even when they're just wet. I know we talk a lot about wintertime weather and it's icy, but even when they're just wet, it can take you a little extra time to slow down. You can fishtail a little bit, so just be careful. We're going to have a lot of wet roads over the next couple of days with showers and thunderstorms very prevalent. Things are getting a lot more active now across Texas, including here around the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then back down into a place like Goldthwaite here. We've been watching this storm right over top of you with hail. Mills County under a severe thunderstorm warning. That eventually moving off to the northeast here. Well, just continuing its current movement. Tornado watch in effect in the area in red. Killeen, Waco, Corsicana, south side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Right in Dallas and Fort Worth, we have a severe thunderstorm watch. That's until 10 o'clock tonight. Basically what this means is this atmosphere here is favorable for severe thunderstorms to form, meaning you have to have 1-inch diameter hail or winds 58 miles per hour or greater. Down in the red area, an atmosphere that's favorable for tornadoes to form. They may not be happening at this moment, but the atmosphere could potentially produce them. Now watch how the storms really take off this evening. This is a look at the future radar. So the modeling of where these storms fire up tonight. Also watch these storms lifting their way northbound, combining with this area of stormy weather tonight. 1 o'clock in the morning, San Antonio toward Killeen, toward Abilene, really getting hit hard with storms, individual discrete supercells. Tomorrow morning, you're headed out to work. Tons of storms for us. Memphis and Nashville, you could have the worst commutes in America tomorrow. And then that just sets the stage for what happens tomorrow afternoon.
Absolutely. And, we're watching for, yet again, a significant threat of severe weather. We're talking Torcon values 5, 6, 7 across sections of the South, even into the Mid-South. Ohio Valley, you'll have the threat of some severe weather as well. So we're looking at Jackson, Mississippi, and Scottsville, Kentucky, 2 communities in that possible severe weather zone. Now, Jackson, Birmingham, up to Nashville, these are areas where the Torcon is as high as a 7. When we're dealing with a Torcon of 7, That means we think a tornado likely in the area. In fact, numerous tornadoes possible within that region. That'll probably be the highest concentration zone of the tornadoes. Also, in that area where we've got the 7, that purple-pink kind of color, that's where we've also got the greatest likelihood that you see EF2 or greater tornadoes. Some of those could be long tracks. So bottom line, you've got a day warning. Make sure you have a safe spot. Make sure you have a way to get those warnings. Make sure you know where the whole family will be. And again, you're ready to move should those warnings be issued. Now, as Mike showed us, we've got the showers, the thunderstorms out there tomorrow morning. But into the late morning and afternoon, we're going to begin to see those thunderstorms really developing. So this, I know we don't have the timestamp on here, but this is the afternoon getting towards like 3, 4 o'clock. And now we've got places in eastern Mississippi, parts of Alabama, and into Tennessee getting in on those big storms that could produce the wind, likely hail, and again, the possibility of those supercell tornadoes. Birmingham, even into the evening, you'll see those storms. I think we get late evening, early overnight, and then we watch places like Atlanta and the upstate of South Carolina.
Right,
Mike?
Alex, thank you. And coming up on Weather Underground, with strong tornadoes possible tomorrow, we're going to break down why it's critical to have a safe shelter when a violent storm threatens. Where's the safest spot in your home to go? We'll show you when we return.
Crazy scenes across parts of the Southwest. We've got high winds and snow in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Kind of a miserable day out there. At times we've seen some drizzle along with the light snow. That wind, though, leading to big snow drifts in some spots, 3 feet high snow drifts. Ooh. That just looks awful, right? Snow still falling in communities to the south and east of the Albuquerque area. We get you up farther to the north. Santa Fe, you've seen some rain and snow showers. Same for parts of Texas, up towards the Dalhart area, some light snow. Tucumcari, New Mexico, so right along the state line, light snow still falling in these areas. And we get you up into portions of Colorado where light snow is coming down around Colorado Springs, areas to the south of Pueblo. Now, Pueblo, you are getting in on some of those rain showers, but Grand Junction to Aspen, some snow showers for you. Top 5 snowiest March for the Denver metro area. So if you thought it's been a snowy month, you're not dreaming things. It has. 2021 so far, just under 32 inches of snow. And you're not far from the number 2 snowiest March on record. March and April both bring a good bit of snow to the Denver metro area. Now, tomorrow, we'll be watching portions of the state of Nevada, Utah, and western Colorado for snow. Still watching some of those areas there into northern Arizona, northern New Mexico for a few light snow showers, but much quieter across the Albuquerque area. Mike?
Well, water availability going from bad to worse for states that rely on the drought-stricken Colorado River. In Utah, the drought's so bad the state of emergency has been declared there. Now, this week, the Weather Channel and our climate unit, Pattern, are examining the making of a mega drought. Chief Environmental Correspondent Dave Malkoff joining us now. Dave.
Hey, Mike, it's good to see you. Today, we take you to northern Colorado. The place Alex was just showing us is not snowing right now, where warmer days and less snow are making it harder for ranchers to make a living.
In rural northern Colorado, Matt and Christy Belton ranch the old-fashioned way.
I get all my exercise doing this.
A horse team never needs a battery jump start. No matter how cold it is, they always start. Everyone does.
In the winter, the cattle need fed every day. Christmas, New Year's, doesn't matter. We feed every day. There's no Sundays west Omaha in this business.
It may look like there's a lot of snow here in the Colorado Rockies, but all of this is not nearly the amount of snow they need.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
These warmer, less snowy winters in Colorado echo through the canyons of Arizona, impacting more than 40 million people downstream.
There are natural cycles, but there's also kind of the humans contributing to the rise in temperatures in a time that wouldn't necessarily be happening otherwise.
The snow that does melt sets out on a 1,400-mile winding journey to the Colorado River Delta in Sonora, Mexico. And along the way, the drought has left this massive dry ring around Lake Mead. In the last 20 years, America's largest reservoir has lost some 4.5 trillion gallons of water.
And the rain doesn't come like it used to in June and July and throughout the summer.
Matt tells us this snowfall crisis has all kinds of ripple effects, like the price of hay going through the roof. So farmers and cities are already cutting back on the water they use.
We've been able to sort of hold off, I think, a real crisis. Current projections are showing for the lake to drop even further during 2022.
And if the trend continues, we could be looking at a mega drought in the making.
Hopefully it'll come back in 4 or 5 years and we'll start getting moisture like we used to.
For now, the Beltons are just moving forward.
Because I can't feed too much in one spot.
There may be no Sundays off west of Omaha, but more sunny days and less snow is already a reality on this mountain ranch.
So, Dave, here we are again. Snowpack below average for the year. Are rangers hopeful or are they worried?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. You may have some snowfall that is lacking right now, but if you look at this chart here, you can see we are just below average. So, I mean, anything can happen in the next 5 or 10 years, but if you look at the averages here, it does look like we are far below what we need to be in the Colorado Rockies, Mike.
All right, our Dave Malkoff with the Mega Drought Report this evening. Dave, thank you. Alex?
Well, still to come on Weather Underground. More on our top stories. Significant concern for the South tomorrow as we watch a potential severe outbreak. That includes the threat of strong tornadoes. We're looking at parts of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area right now as we've got storms on the eastern side of Dallas. 2 severe warnings, although our weather producer Sarah Dillingham watching these closely, saying there is some rotation. You can kind of see that shape. They're beginning to take on that suspicious shape with a little bit of a hook at the end. Henderson, Kaufman, Van Zant counties under a severe thunderstorm warning. Hail, the big issue out of these storms right now. How about that storm to the south and east of Dallas? Hail over 1.5 inches in diameter, so likely looking at that golf ball sized hail out of this storm.
You're right.
Coming up at 8 p.m., it's Highway Through Hell. Tonight, the tense moments during a rescue of 2 40-ton excavators buried in a bog.
It's just equipment and machinery graveyard around here.
Al Quiring's facing the recovery of a lifetime. 2 excavators buried deep in a peat bog. To hitch the 70,000-pound excavator to the dozers, Al's had a heavy-duty piece of rigging custom-made for this job.
With the triple hook on her.
A 110-pound piece of solid steel called the triple hook.
It's the new thing that I dreamt up one night.
2 dozers rigged to Al's triple hook and a 3rd machine pulling on the undercarriage will try and strong-arm the excavator out of the bog.
Like 3 big fat elephants, we're gonna lean into it and rip that out of there. Wind her up. Give her some throttle. Use the winch. Come on, pull on her. Stop.
When it gets hung up, on the log platform.
There's logs underneath. Right in the way.
That is Highway Through Hell, and it is coming up right after Weather Underground 8/7 Central. Mike?
We have some showers for you across the Midwest, and some of those storms could turn a little bit friskier as we go through the night. Let me just put it that way. And there's actually even a little bit of snow. Light showers for you between Chicago and Waukegan this evening. The showers have ended for you in Minneapolis, but snow, Rice Lake and up through Duluth. UP of Michigan, you have rain tonight, including around Escanaba. A few showers that could be a little bit heavier around Green Bay this evening. But what we're going to watch for, a few storms here around Saginaw Bay and up through Lake Huron that may quickly produce some real quick rain, but it's really windy for us tonight too. Chicago, our winds are gusting to 40, 36 in Detroit, winds gusting in Indianapolis as well, but the winds are going to start to back off as we go through the night. It still stays breezy through the evening, and then tomorrow morning I think a completely different feel in the atmosphere, if you would. You're going to have a lot calmer conditions. You'll be dry in the morning, but you won't be dry all day. You're going to have another round of storms that then fires in. For Chicago, how are we looking this evening? Likely you're going to be, in some drizzle or some light showers for maybe the next hour or so. Could you even see a break of maybe just a small little peak of sunshine before it sets? It's possible. Temperatures tonight fall down to about 50 degrees or so. Now tomorrow in comes another surge. Same one talking about in the south. It's just the northern periphery of it. I-70 in particular is a corridor that could just erupt in storms. St. Louis to Indianapolis, over towards Cincinnati, about 65 degrees with storms here. Chicago and Detroit, your showers come in later in the day. Watch for some storms potentially overnight on Thursday. Alex?
Yeah, we've got the threat of severe weather across the south into the Ohio Valley tomorrow. Torcon values as high as 7, and that timing will be throughout the day. We wake up with thunderstorms. I think the greatest chance of the really strong, severe thunderstorms will come once we get beyond lunchtime. So early to mid-afternoon for some portions of the south, then afternoon, evening for other areas. And you don't want to wait. Now is the time to figure out where in your home you should go if a tornado warning is issued. Meteorologist Mark Elliott shows us the safest place to shelter from a storm.
When you're under a tornado warning or you hear a tornado siren, and especially if you can see that tornado, now is not the time to grab that smartphone and start filming. Instead, it's time to get inside and seek shelter. You run inside to seek shelter from the storm and come up to your bedroom, which normally is pretty safe, until, of course, a tree crashes through your roof. Coming down to a lower level, great idea. Trying to see where the storm is outside those windows, bad idea. It was a good idea to leave the windows, but this exterior wall doesn't help you as much as you might think. No, tree limbs or 2x4s, they're like toothpicks when winds get as fierce as in these storms. Yes, your garage is on ground level and has 4 sides. No, it isn't going to protect you the way you want it to. So this is where you do want to be. Not only a low level, but the lowest level you've got. And you want to put as many walls between you and the storm as possible. And then you stay here until it's safe. Because this room could be the one thing that saves your life.
I really should hit home right there. Hey, still to come on Weather Underground. Concern increasing for the south tomorrow as a severe outbreak now looms. We're showing you who's at risk for strong tornadoes and where that threat continues after you go to bed. Plus, find out where rounds of heavy rain are also ramping up the flood danger. That's coming up in our next hour of Weather Underground.
I remember.
Right now on Weather Underground, a multi-day severe threat unfolding. We're tracking dangerous storms right now as damaging wind and heavy rain continues to push through parts of the deep south. Now, those multiple rounds of storms will also ramp up the danger of rising water. We'll go in depth on where the flash flood threat is highest, stretching from the Gulf Coast all the way into the Ohio Valley.
There is also big concern for tomorrow as a severe weather outbreak looms. We break down who could see strong tornadoes and why the danger won't end once the sun goes down. Plus, slick conditions lead to a frightening near miss caught on dash cam. You're going to see it next on Weather Underground. Thanks for being with us here on Weather Underground. I'm Mike Bettis.
I'm Alex Wilson. Dr. Knapp here with us as well. And once again, Mike, we're talking about a significant severe threat across parts of the southeast. Tomorrow looks to be the big day.
It really does. Things are already starting tonight. I want to take you to Goldthwaite, Texas here and show you what the skies look like. They are dark. They are ominous. We've had some pretty good storms that have raced past Goldthwaite. We've had some pretty good hail with these storms as well. We have severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings to run down for you this evening. Not to mention, we've got a pretty good flood threat that we're going to see over the next 24+ hours. Right to Texas we go tonight because a couple of areas where the storms have fired up right now. That does include outside of Waco and now east side of Dallas for us as well. Look at these storms. This one, by the way, is the one that had a radar indicated tornado on it, coming close to, say, Highway 281 tonight. Coryell, Hamilton, Lampasas counties all under tornado warnings right now. By the way, if you're in an event here, heads up, I want you to take shelter. Lowest level of your home, if you've got a basement, great. If you don't, then get to an interior room of your home. Get away from windows, get away from exterior walls, and hunker down maybe under a sturdy piece of furniture. That's a radar-indicated tornado. That warning lasts until 6:30 this evening. Taking you up east side of the Metroplex here, some pretty good storms that are racing through Dallas, Kaufman, and Rockwall counties right now, including past Terrell, but right over I-20 right now, coming eventually over Highway 80 as well. That's got a pretty good hail core on it. Forney will be there around 6:13, so you've got about 13 minutes or so before that's in there. But these storms likely producing some pretty good wind, but also some small cores of hail. There's a larger core of hail with that one there, just coming past Gun Barrel City, where we had ping pong ball size hail, and about to come very close to Canton and over I-20, Kaufman and Van Zandt counties right now also under severe thunderstorm warnings. As we time that one out for you, heading up towards Scott around 6:12 and around Edgewood 6:37 this evening. Let's widen this out, show you the bigger picture. What's going on here? The atmosphere right now is just primed for severe weather. This area that's highlighted in red, that's an atmosphere, that location, the atmosphere could produce tornadoes. It may be happening soon or it might be imminent, and that happens, you get a warning. But a watch means just be careful. Just watch for things to happen. That watch goes until 10 o'clock. Through 10 o'clock this evening up around Dallas and Sherman and Mount Pleasant, a severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. So the atmosphere here not as conducive for producing tornadoes, but you could see large hail and very high winds gusting upwards of 60 miles per hour or greater. So again, that includes the Metroplex here, and we want you to be very, very careful of what the dangers will be for the remainder of the evening. It'll go through the overnight and really ramp up tomorrow, Dr. Knapp. I know you've got to look at Thursday, which could be very dangerous.
And that's because all the ingredients are coming together to produce all large hail and damaging wind, along with the flooding rains, because of this strengthening middle upper level system in the southwest that's embedded within our big trough. So we've got a southwest to northeast path across the plains and the Great Lakes tomorrow with that mid-level system. And it is already, as Mike has been showing, spawning a low pressure system there in southwest Texas that extends into northern Mexico. And that's the beginnings of a quickly moving new surface low tomorrow. This is just a snapshot in time for tomorrow, but this low will be on the move very quickly. That warm front will be blasting northward, as will warm, moist, unstable air at low levels. And this will all be happening during the day tomorrow while we add some daytime heating to the mix. So the instability will be increasing quickly during the day tomorrow, with the surface winds coming straight out of the south, bringing all that moisture, the frontal systems providing areas for focus and lift. And you go just a few thousand feet up in the atmosphere, the winds will turn south-southwesterly. That provides the low-level wind shear to get the supercells rotating, and those, of course, can generate tornadoes. Then you go to the mid-levels, and we've got really strong winds ahead of that approaching system from the southwest. That increases the surface wind damaging threat because it can mix down those strong winds into convection, and they just got a big, really strong jet stream aloft that can add to the lift. It's just a really energetic atmosphere, Alex, and I think a lot more people will be at risk tomorrow than last week's system.
Yeah, so we're going to break it down piece by piece, but as you mentioned, Dr. Knapp, the Storm Prediction Center warning that this could be another severe weather outbreak. Torcon values as high as 7 for Jackson and Tupelo, Mississippi, Memphis and Nashville, Tennessee, Huntsville and Birmingham, Alabama, even around a 5 for the northwest suburbs suburbs of Atlanta, getting near Montgomery into eastern sections of the state of Arkansas and southern Kentucky. Louisville, a torcon of around a 3. Same for areas like Little Rock. And that tornado threat does encompass some of the same areas that were hit during last week's outbreak. You remember that event spurned 48 tornadoes, but crews are still addressing the damage from those storms, and now we're getting more. So here is what we know. Again, torcons as high as 7, so an outbreak of severe storms and tornadoes, what we're expecting tomorrow. A threat of not just tornadoes, but also damaging winds and large hail out of those storms, and several long-track tornadoes and strong tornadoes are possible. So, Dr. Knapp, I mentioned that we're going to be breaking this down kind of piece by piece and talking about how tomorrow's threat is also different than what we saw last week, starting with the speed of this week's storms.
Yes, we are going to have a strengthening, rapidly moving low pressure system, and when things are moving quickly in the big picture in the atmosphere, that can cause things to move more quickly on the individual supercell storm level. Look at last week's mid-level system was moving straight to the east. Compare that with this week's system. Here's the mid-level low, and that is spawning a surface low, and all of this is going to be moving in this direction and a lot more quickly than last week. And also, this intensifying short wave is going to see the blow up of the colors there. That is rapidly strengthening low-level spin. But look at the path and how quickly it's going to move from South Texas tomorrow morning to the Great Lakes tomorrow night and Friday morning. This will be moving quickly to the northeast while it strengthens quickly. This evening, we've got, relatively weak, broad area of low pressure compared to what we're going to have tomorrow. It's strengthening in the morning tomorrow, and then it really gets going in midday. Look at how much stronger the low is as we get into the midday and the afternoon hours. That strengthens the low-level flow. And when you've got stronger southerly flow coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, not only does that ramp up the moisture and the low-level wind shear and all the instability, all those ingredients, but this stronger motion of the air because of that lower pressure, that faster moving air, that makes the individual supercells move more quickly. So that means, number one, when you get a warning, the storm that might be moving 50 miles an hour or faster will be on you really quickly. So you got to take shelter immediately. And when the flow is faster, that makes the tornadoes and the supercells cover more ground during their lifetime. So that's why when that tornado watch is issued tomorrow, you've got to get off the roads and into your sturdy building so that you're not, Mike, trying to take shelter at the last minute with fast-moving supercells that'll be on you before you know it.
Yeah, sometimes you're just not going to be able to get out of the way, and so you have to shelter, right? But, Dr. I want to break down some of the ingredients that we'll see tomorrow and get your take on this. SLIM, as we like to call it, shear, lift, instability, and moisture. High amounts of shear, high amounts of lift, high to medium amounts of moisture, medium amounts of instability. So these numbers are pretty high. We can model all this, assign numbers to them, Dr. Knapp, but this doesn't seem to be a good sign.
No, it's not. And also, all of those ingredients will be ramping up during the day tomorrow, and you inject daytime heating into the mix with a rapidly intensifying low that's moving, then things will escalate quickly tomorrow. And one of the key ingredients is moisture. You can't have instability of a significant amount without moisture. And there's going to be arguably more moisture to work with over a larger area this week's system than with last week. Here's tomorrow morning, and then look at tomorrow in the evening. It's surging all the way toward the Great Lakes, and it gets focused along the front. So where you have lift due to the fronts, that tends to focus the moisture even more. But moisture is just one component of instability. And there's going to be a lot of instability because the warmth at the low levels, and then you got the cold air coming in from that mid-upper level system from the west. But also, as we go to late morning and into the early afternoon, we're going to be increasing the daytime heating, and the low will be in the process of strengthening while daytime heating is increasing. So that really destabilizes the atmosphere because you add more moisture at the time you're adding more heat from the sun's energy. And the stronger the low is, the stronger the low to mid-level flow will be, and therefore with the crossing and the changing of the wind direction and speed with height, the increased low-level wind shear, the stronger that low gets. And that will be the case really close to the low in a place like Tennessee that didn't get all the instability and wind shear last week. Those ingredients will be in place in a big way in a place like Tennessee tomorrow, Alex. So when you look at the future radar, you see there's maybe a little break late morning. That adds the sun's radiation to the daytime heating, and then boom, it all blows up while you're destabilizing the atmosphere. It's a bad setup.
Yeah, so many times people think, oh, sun, this is good. We're not getting it on the storms, but not at all the case. And what also makes this different, you kind of mentioned that we're looking at areas farther to the north than last week's threat.
We are, and if you look at where the tornado reports were last week and compare that to the area that's at risk for tomorrow, it includes a lot of the areas that were affected last week. So, yes, it is a here we go again in places like Mississippi and Alabama. But Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Ohio, also at risk. So the area is larger and extends farther north than last time. So let's pick up the story with our strengthening, fast-moving low that's moving northeastward. That will bring the instability a lot farther north into Tennessee, Kentucky than what we saw last week. And again, near that low, with that northward moving warm front, you're going to have those white lines at the surface, those blue lines a few thousand feet up, that change in wind speed and direction with height, that wind shear will be pretty significant farther north, even into tomorrow night into place like Ohio. So that energy is going to go a lot farther north than last week, and you're still going to have plenty of it left over. Not going to have the cold air wedge at the surface in a place like Atlanta, and we may not eat up all the instability to your west like we did last week. So again, here's that overall timing. You'll have the storms starting in the morning, but they kind of clear out. We get the daytime heating, the increase in the instability with that low strengthening, and then, Alex, it goes into the Appalachians, into the southeast tomorrow night, and Friday's not going to be a whole lot of fun in the southeast either.
No, it could be another really busy one for the end of the week. We've got those Torcon values, though, as Dr. Knapp just broke down, 7 for Memphis, for Birmingham, for Nashville. So a lot of communities with big populations. Then think of the smaller towns that are around these cities also dealing with that significant severe chance. We look at Memphis, 5 out of 10 west of town, east of town. That's where we get into those 7s, parts of Mississippi and Tennessee. And again, this is a spot you actually wake up to rain showers and thunderstorms. So tomorrow's morning commute could be on the stormy side. But look, as we get into the late morning and afternoon hours, we begin to see more breaks between the storms. And as Dr. Knapp mentioned, you get little bits of sunshine, and that'll help to increase that instability. And we've got some big storms showing up around and south and east of Memphis as we get into that mid-afternoon time frame. I think by dinner time, that's when our last bit of storms rolls through and things quiet beyond that point. Tomorrow for the Birmingham area, around and west of town, Torcons as high as 7. That also includes communities north of town. So we look at Coleman and Jasper and Tuscaloosa. Areas to the east of Birmingham, Sylacauga, along I-20 up towards the Georgia state line, 5 out of 10 on the Torcon. Another area where we've got rain showers and thunderstorms to start the day. Get a little bit more in the way of breaks by late morning. Again, maybe some peaks of sunshine in there helps to aid in that instability, and the big thunderstorms coming into play by the mid and late afternoon hours. I think even into the evening, 7, 8 o'clock, you can see some storms still rolling through the area. By the time we get to the late evening hours, you should be done with storms focused farther to the east. Now, Middle Tennessee, Torcons of 7. You head up into the northern part of the state, right around the Kentucky state line, Torcon values of 5. But Nashville, tomorrow morning, you wake up to some moderate rain showers across the area. Again, during the early afternoon, a little bit of a break, but that will allow those big-time storms to take over for the afternoon into the evening. So 5, 6, 7, even 8 o'clock, I think could be a pretty stormy time frame for you guys in the Nashville metro, eventually quieting down as we head into the later hours of Thursday. Mike?
Alex, thank you. And still to come on Weather Underground.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
Why ranchers say the lack of snow is leading to an economic meltdown. It's part 3 of our special series, Making of a Mega Drought. Plus, tracking storms for you tonight, including severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings across Texas. A storm that eventually we think could get toward, say, I-35. Coryell, Hamilton, and Mills County under a tornado warning. Want you to take shelter around Event and Hamilton tonight. Radar indicated tornado with a warning lasting until 6:30 this evening. Thunderstorms on the east side of Dallas as well, including around Terrell, and a big hail core around Canton. Park the car under cover tonight.
When I...
We log at the top of the world, a mile high into the mountains. That's where some of the best logging is.
It's absolutely insane up here.
Careful, careful, careful.
There's lots of things that can go wrong. The mud just does not stop.
You can't stay on the road.
You just hope you make it.
It's a battle against Mother Nature. It's not for everyone.
Let the fun begin.
Well, you do not want to miss a new episode of Mud Mountain Haulers this Sunday as a series of bad breaks leads to a personal rescue mission.
This time on Mud Mountain Hauler.
Over the bank I go. Tell her I love her.
Craig gets taken for a ride.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Then...
We got a major problem.
What?
A bad break for brother Brent.
Okay, you guys ready?
Becomes a risky family recovery.
Oh. Whoa, 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 whoa.
And all new Mud Mountain Haulers. That episode airs this Sunday night at 10, 9 Central.
Well, the rain in New Orleans setting records. They saw a new daily rainfall record with more than 5.5 inches of rain. And yesterday was the second wettest March day on record for the Big Easy. Not the only spot getting in on that big rainfall. Again, over 5.5 inches there. We'll show you some other spots that just got soaked. If you were watching us this time last night, though, we were watching that heavy rain just working over the same areas. And so we do have a flash flood watch that remains for portions of Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern parts of the state of Alabama as well. So that flash flood watch as we add more rain to the areas that have already been drenched. Let's break down what we saw. Lake Charles, that's another spot that got in on a record rainfall yesterday, the second wettest March day for Lake Charles, 4.99 inches. I know it feels so incomplete. If you're like me, you're just like, God, can't we get to the 5.00? But alas, 4.919 was enough to get you into that second wettest March day on record spot. When we look at the rainfall over the last 7 days, you know, there's that one spot that jumps out, and it is parts of southern Mississippi into Louisiana, even getting into southern Alabama, where 3 to 5+ inches came down. Now, where you see the orange around New Orleans, those are the 5 to 8 inch totals, even some locally higher spots. So big rain there coming down into parts of Louisiana. In terms of scattered thunderstorms today, watching again Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama. Tomorrow we've got our storm threat, and so with the storms could come some very heavy rainfall. That's yet another threat out of these storms. It's not just, you know, the things that we think of in terms of severe weather, but also the possibility of some flooding. On Friday, best chance of rain focused into parts of Georgia and western parts of the Florida Panhandle. So Pensacola getting towards the Tallahassee area. Rainfall still to come. I think this time the highest amounts will be up around northern Alabama into Tennessee, 2 to 3 inch totals there. But again, when we talk about maybe up to an inch in New Orleans, 1 to 2 inches in southern Mississippi, around Mobile, Alabama, we could be looking at some more flooding problems. It's not going to take much in some of these areas, Dr. Knabb.
And unfortunately, that can lead to life-threatening situations. Springtime is life-threatening because of the severe weather, the tornadoes, but it's also life-threatening because of flash flooding, which tends to happen and cause fatalities in our country during the spring and the summer into early fall. And a lot of that does have to do with hurricane season. If we look over the last 5 years, we've averaged more than 100 people dying in this country, and this shows the fatalities per month over the last 5 years, 2016 through 2020. Certainly 2017 jumps out from August and September with Harvey and Maria, and we also had in 2018 Florence in North Carolina, and then Matthew in 2016 in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia. A lot of fatalities there. But there are also peaks in some of the months in the spring in the last few years. One that jumps out is kind of, late spring into early summer with June of 2016. Now, those fatalities in that horrible month had nothing to do with a landfalling tropical depression or storm or hurricane. Nowhere near West Virginia when this horrible flood occurred on June 23rd of that year. 24 fatalities in that mountainous state with nearly a foot of rain. But that wasn't the only event in June of 2016. You go back to earlier in that same month of that same year, Texas got hit hard, north of Austin, near Fort Hood, near Palestine, and even late May into early June, Houston got hit hard with deadly flooding. Now, if we go to 2019, that was not only a bad month in May of 2019, but it was a bad several months. You go from February to July with the snow melt, the heavy rainfall to record levels, the river flooding. We had numerous deadly months in 2019, and then April of 2016, another round of flooding that caused fatalities in the Houston area. Mike, so it's not just hurricanes that cause flood deaths, and it's not just tornadoes that take people's lives in the spring.
For sure. Dr. Knabb, thank you for that. And we've got a lot more to come on Weather Underground tonight. We're tracking strong storms for you this evening, including storms that are coming past the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Hunt, Kaufman, Rockwall counties under a severe thunderstorm warning, including around Terrell. And then a severe thunderstorm warning around Van Zandt County as well, with a hail core over I-20. Cameras rolling when a mudslide comes rolling down Mount Fuji in Japan. These cameras are up on the mountain about 5,000 feet. All this mud and water picking up speed and volume as it rushes down the hillside.
Yeah, there's an erosion control facility in place to keep all that sludge from actually getting into any homes. Slush avalanches happen in the spring when snow gets saturated with water because it's warming up and because it's raining. Well, we welcome you back into Weather Underground on this Wednesday. I'm Alex Wilson here with Mike Bettis and Dr. Rick Knabb, breaking down yet another significant threat of severe weather, Mike.
Somewhat similar to what we had last week. This one may extend a little bit farther north, though, as well. So just a lot of things to keep a track of here over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. And of course, you can always download the app for your TV on Roku, on your smart TV, Amazon Fire TV. If you're an existing cable or satellite subscriber, you can get all the access that you would normally, including live coverage, local radar, and your forecast. So check us out that way as well. You may be keeping very close tabs on the weather, especially if you're worried about the tornado or thunderstorm threat. Here's a look at the hail that was coming down in Goldthwaite, Texas. I mean, just hammering us. I mean, not huge hail, but a lot of it, and it is loud. It's hitting that metal roof, hitting the metal buildings here. You know, I'd say it was golf ball size or less, but there was just a ton of it. And you get a little bit of that, that ground fog as a result because you cooled the air so much at the surface, and you get a little bit of fog that forms. All right, so we've got some severe thunderstorm warnings, and we have tornado warnings for you this evening. There's Goldthwaite, Texas, in a live view, by the way. And we saw a low-hanging wall cloud, a tail cloud, but as of right now, it's not as potent as it once was. Want to get you to the east side of Texas. New tornado warning here for Van Zandt County, going past Canton right now. That's got a big hail core on it, but also a little appendage hanging down here near I-20 tonight. So Canton Canton, Edgewood, Grand Saline. These are all places where we want you to get into your shelter very, very quickly right now. Our warning until 7 o'clock, so this thing will go for another half an hour. Pulling off to the north and east here. There is some rotation right in here, very close to a Canton here, moving now closer and closer towards, say, Highway 80, so right in here. There's the rotation that's going to be now right up in there. So it's gone past Canton at this point, then rolling up toward Grand Saline again. Get to your safe spot as quickly as you can this evening. That storm, I'm going to change the tracker on that just a little bit. Looks like it's going a little bit farther north now at this point. But keep in mind, folks, that we are going to have opportunities here. I'm going to see if I can move that just a little bit for you here and move it up in this direction just a little bit. You know what? I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to erase it, and we're going to just try over. Let's try a different one right here. Like that. I want to give you some accurate information. Let's go in that direction. So, all right, Fruitvale, going to get there around 6:33 and Alba around 6:53. So just to give you the timing here so you know exactly when it could be coming your way. So just be careful with these storms and make sure you're in a safe spot. Now, headed over closer toward Dallas, we've got a severe thunderstorm warning, Hunt, Kaufman, and Rockwall counties here. Got a good little core of hail down in there. We've actually had 2 storms, 1 and 2, that have come through the same spots practically. But a place like Terrell, please make sure you're in a safe spot as one inside to stay away from these hail cores. There's the one we're showing you on the camera, and the video that we just showed you came past Goldway with a big hailer here, now coming toward Hamilton, Coryell, Hamilton, and Mills County, all under severe thunderstorm warnings. Tornado watch is in effect, meaning this area, we've got favorable conditions for tornadoes to form. Killeen and Waco included in that, and a severe thunderstorm watch around Dallas and Fort Worth. That until 10 o'clock this evening, meaning hail and high winds are possible, although, Alex, as we saw, tornadoes may also be possible as well.
Yeah, and then we're also expecting a little bit more in the way of those tornado severe thunderstorm watches tomorrow. Torcon values as high as 7 for Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, even extreme northwest Georgia. So these would be areas where we think numerous tornadoes are possible, some strong tornadoes possible, EF2 or greater, and the possibility there for some long track tornadoes. We wake up tomorrow morning and we've of course got rain showers, thunderstorms scattered about. But as Dr. Knabb pointed out, by lunchtime, getting a little bit of a break in between those showers, so get some sunlight and really get those big storms firing very quickly then over the late afternoon hours through parts of Mississippi and Alabama, Tennessee as well, continuing to move northward into Kentucky and Georgia as we head into the evening, and even an overnight threat that we think could get into places like Atlanta, Greenville, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina. So tomorrow, Chattanooga, you've got that Torcon of 7, same for Huntsville, Alabama, Fort Payne, getting farther into northwest Georgia, Torcon values of 5. So that would be places like Rome, Dalton, Georgia. We look at the Chattanooga area, 5 o'clock in the morning. You can see rain showers, maybe a rumble of thunder out there. By late morning, early afternoon, getting some breaks, and then the big storms coming in for the late afternoon, and even into the evening hours. We're back after this. That's a look at your weather in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was snow, strong winds spotted in the area. And by the way, that wind so strong made for 3-foot snow drifts in the area. Pretty miserable out there, right? Yeah, that does not look fun. Spring, a time when we get snow across not just parts of New Mexico, but into, say, the Denver metro area. March, April, pretty common for snow in these areas. And right now, Albuquerque, most of the snow focused off to your south and east, although we are seeing some around town. Remember, we got the elevation that's messing with our radar view a bit. So, again, still not a beautiful March day by any means. Up towards Dalhart, Texas, we've got some snow along I-40 into the Amarillo area, also seeing some snow begin to mix in, and portions of Colorado also getting in on that snow. So across the Rockies, generally light snow falling, but again, at least still watching some of that wintry weather. And currently in Denver, we've seen just under 32 inches of snow. That puts us at number 3 for the snowiest months of March on record for Denver. Now tomorrow, watching for more snow in Colorado, generally western Colorado, portions of Utah and into Nevada. And by the way, the snow falling right now, part of the system that's going to bring us the severe weather tomorrow. Mike?
Well, water availability going from bad to worse for states that rely on the drought-stricken Colorado River. In Utah, the drought's so bad that the state of emergency has been declared there. Now this week, the Weather Channel and our climate unit, Pattern, are examining the making of a mega drought. Chief Environmental Correspondent Dave Malkoff joining us now. Dave.
Hey, Mike, it's good to see you. Today, we take you to northern Colorado. The place Alex was just showing us is not snowing right now, where warmer days and less snow are making it harder for ranchers to make a living.
In rural northern Colorado, Matt and Christy Belton ranch the old-fashioned way.
I get all my exercise doing this.
A horse team never needs a battery jump start. No matter how cold it is, they always start. Everyone does.
In the winter, the cattle need fed every day. Christmas, New Year's, doesn't matter. We feed every day. There's no Sundays West Omaha in this business.
It may look like there's a lot of snow here in the Colorado Rockies, but all of this is not nearly the amount of snow they need.
We're half of the snowpack, so it means half the runoff to keep the rivers full.
Those banks right there would be probably 3 times that high. It would almost be like we're going through a tunnel with the horses.
These warmer, less snowy winters in Colorado echo through the canyons of Arizona, impacting more than 40 million people downstream.
There are natural cycles, but there's also kind of the humans contributing to the rise in temperatures in a time that wouldn't necessarily be happening otherwise.
The snow that does melt sets out on a 1,400-mile winding journey to the Colorado River Delta in Sonora, Mexico. And along the way, the drought has left this massive dry ring around Lake Mead. In the last 20 years, America's largest reservoir has lost some 4.5 trillion gallons of water.
And the rain doesn't come like it used to in June and July and throughout the summer.
Matt tells us this snowfall crisis has all kinds of ripple effects, like the price of hay going through the roof. So farmers and cities are already cutting back on the water they use.
We've been able to sort of hold off, I think, a real crisis. Current projections are showing for the lake to drop even further during 2022.
And if the trend continues, we could be looking at a mega drought in the making.
Hopefully it'll come back in 4 or 5 years and we'll start getting moisture like we used to.
For now, the Beltons are just moving forward.
Because I can't feed too much in one spot.
There may be no Sundays off west of Omaha, but more sunny days and less snow is already a reality on this mountain ranch.
So, Dave, here we are again. Snowpack below average for the year. Are ranchers hopeful or are they worried?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. You may have some snowfall that is lacking right now, but if you look at this chart here, you can see we are just below average. So, I mean, anything can happen in the next 5 or 10 years. But if you look at the averages here, it does look like we are far below what we need to be in the Colorado Rockies, Mike.
All right, our Dave Malkoff with the Mega Drought Report this evening. Dave, thank you. Alex?
All right, still to come on Weather Underground. We're watching the threat for severe weather tomorrow as well as this evening. Have some active warnings I want to walk you through right now. We've got a tornado warning east of Dallas, north of I-20. This is going to be allowed to expire at the top of the hour, but we continue across Van Zandt counties. A radar-indicated tornado right along, looks like Highway 80, Edgewood, Grand Saline, and Alba in the path of this one. Alba still going to be warned for you, more likely than not, as hail could come out of this storm. Again, we've got severe warnings farther to the west, closer to the city of Dallas, I should say. Severe warning for Hunt, Kaufman, and Rockwall counties until 6:45 local time. Again, watching for hail as well as the potential for gusty winds. Could see some big hail out of this one in Bosque and Hamilton counties. This warning in effect until 7:30, and also noting the possibility of a tornado on this storm. We are back with, again, a look at tomorrow's severe threat next. Well, coming up at 8 p.m., highway through hell. Tonight, tense moments during the rescue of two 40-ton excavators buried in a bog.
It's just equipment and machinery graveyard around here.
Al Quiring's facing the recovery of a lifetime. Two excavators buried deep in a peat bog. To hitch the 70,000-pound excavator to the dozers, Al's had a heavy-duty piece of rigging custom-made for this job.
Put the triple hook on her.
A 110-pound piece of solid steel called the triple hook.
It's the new thing that I dreamt up one night.
Two dozers rigged to Al's triple hook and a third machine pulling on the undercarriage will try and strong-arm the excavator out of the bog.
Like three big fat elephants, we're going to lean into it and rip that out of there. Wind her up. Give it the throttle. Use the winch. Come on, pull on her. Stop.
When it gets hung up on the log platform.
There's logs underneath.
Right in the way.
That is Highway Through Hell, and you can see it next, about 10 minutes from now.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what's happening for you in the Midwest, with a little bit of rain coming in for you tonight, maybe more prevalent rain, even thunderstorms for you tomorrow. Little light sprinkles for you here, maybe hitting you around Aurora and Chicago tenoght, but I don't think a huge deal at all for you. Minneapolis, we're drier. Look at the snow up here, northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin. A little bit of rain for you. Light to moderate rain around Menominee here, coming past Wausau and Green Bay, and then showers rolling up through the UP of Michigan tonight. There's a little bit of that snow. I don't think that's going to be much, if anything. But got a cold north wind in Duluth right now, gusting to 23. Chicago, your winds out of the southwest gusting to 35. Really windy for you. Detroit, Indianapolis, Peoria, as that whole system is wrapping up and rolling through the Great Lakes tonight. So staying very, very breezy for us tonight. Tomorrow, a little bit calmer day for us, especially the first half of your day. The winds will have died off quite a bit. The rain won't be there, and I don't think you get rain until late day in Chicago or Detroit. So this evening, rain, light stuff. Not an issue at all for maybe the next hour or so. Then you might actually see a little bit of clearing overnight. Tonight, temperatures dropping down into the upper 40s. Here's what's happening for us tomorrow. A few showers come in late day, Chicago and Detroit. But the bigger issue may be, and we've been talking a lot about our severe weather threat across the south, this is the northern periphery of it here. And these are the locations I'm worried about tomorrow. St. Louis, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Columbus, that I-70 corridor, maybe along the Ohio River Valley here. 65 in Cincinnati with thunderstorms. Watch for those to come in late in the day. But the severe weather, Alex, truly is Gulf Coast all the way to the Ohio River Valley.
Yeah, and that threat is high for some of these areas, particularly parts of the South. We're talking torcons of 7 in Alabama, in Mississippi, and in the state of Tennessee, even edging close to northwest Georgia. And tomorrow looks to be an active day, really from start to finish. So you don't want to wait. Now is the time to figure out where you should plan to go if a tornado warning is issued in your area. Where in your house is your safe spot? Well, meteorologist Mark Elliott shows us the safest place to shelter from a storm.
When you're under a tornado warning or you hear a tornado siren, and especially if you can see that tornado, now is not the time to grab that smartphone and start filming. Oops. Instead, it's time to get inside and seek shelter. You run inside to seek shelter from the storm and come up to your bedroom, which normally is pretty safe, until, of course, a tree crashes through your roof. Coming down to a lower level, great idea. Trying to see where the storm is outside those windows, bad idea. It was a good idea to leave the windows, but this exterior wall doesn't help you as much as you might think. No, tree limbs or 2x4s, they're like toothpicks when winds get as fierce as in these storms. Yes, your garage is on ground level and has 4 sides. No, it isn't going to protect you the way you want it to. So this is where you do want to be. Not only a low level, but the lowest level you've got. And you want to put as many walls between you and the storm as possible. And then you stay here until it's safe. Because this room could be the one thing that saves your life.
All right, coming up here on Weather Underground, we're covering the storms for you this evening. A few areas out there to watch. Storms across the deep south tonight, and that includes around Dallas and Fort Worth, east side of town, southwest of there as well. Storm coming past Hamilton tonight, Bosque and Hamilton counties under a severe thunderstorm warning with a good hail core on that storm tonight. Eventually headed toward the Morgan area this evening. A tornado warning just past I-20.
Is mealtime
We're closely monitoring some storms around the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, really east side of Dallas at this point. We continue with this tornado warning, but this is set to expire here at the top of the hour, so a little less than 2 minutes left on that warning. And you can see it's a severe thunderstorm warning set to continue for areas to the north. Big hail likely out of the 3 severe warned storms that we've got here on the east side of Dallas, then one to the southwest. So you can see that third storm kind of making its way west of Waco. This is an area where we've got a tornado watch currently in effect. This is underway until 10 o'clock local time, places like Junction and Waco up towards the Stephenville area. Now, Dallas, Fort Worth areas to the north and east, you guys under a severe thunderstorm watch, so conditions favorable for those storms that produce the damaging wind gusts as well as that large hail that we've seen out of storms today. Torcons tomorrow, we're going to up the ante on the storm threat, unfortunately, into our Thursday. Parts of Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, even a little bit of northwest Georgia. Torcons as high as 7. We wake up to rain showers across a lot of the areas, but you notice by the time we get into the late morning, early afternoon, some breaks. That allows us to get some sunshine, get things plenty unstable, and the big storms fire through the PM hours. So early to mid-afternoon in portions of Mississippi, mid to late afternoon in Alabama, and even evening and overnight threat for portions of Georgia. But we'll be watching a lot of metro areas tomorrow. Have a great night.
This time.